Okay,
Here.
now start the
Okay,
podcast.
everyone. Before we get into the show today, give us the like or the dislike. Share it, comment.
Wait, you're asking for dislikes?
Don't ask.
Yeah, I heard it works better in the algorithm.
I think that's for Facebook.
I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, share this.
Wait. If you have no idea, then we're fucked because we don't know.
Share it before you listen to it, just in case you don't like it.
Yeah. Out there for other people to get it.
So, but what I was thinking we could talk about today, and for everyone else to kind of understand, is like why we're so certain. Are we just taking what somebody else told us and creating a dogma out of it and just following, or are we taking it upon ourselves and learning for ourselves, like, and understanding and figuring out, like, how can we actually make a difference in this world, and what does that actually mean? Do we know every single step along the way? No.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oops. Oh wait. I thought we were going with the no. We're going with yes now. Okay.
You said to lie to that. No,
you guys got to tell me which one.
I'm joking.
But my point is, like,
we don't know.
it's kind of like when I walk out the front door, I don't know what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But I know I have certain principles. So whatever happens, I'm going to bring those principles into it. And if I don't, I'm going to look at, why didn't I? What was going on? What was the program that was running? And that's my own. That's not, what is it? That's not for someone else to decide. That's for me to decide. And I can claim it and not do it. Mm-hmm. I can do it and someone else can claim I didn't do it. It doesn't matter. What matters is what I do and who I am and whether I change. So as much as this, what we're doing together is about making a difference in the world, because I'm using those quotes because making a difference isn't the right phrase for it, but that's what people can maybe initially relate to. Changing the world, changing the system, right? Creating a world that's best for all. There's lots of ways we could express it. But as much as it's about that, it's really fundamentally about us, ourselves as individuals changing. Because if we don't, then the change we're trying to have or to implement, or the thing we're trying to create or whatever, isn't really going to end up being best for all. It's going to be just a reflection of us. And so the thing is, like, we could try to sit here and be like, well, we need to become perfect first, like somehow perfect living examples of perfect best for all in every moment. And then we'll start changing the world. But then the first thing you're going to have to face is like, well, I can't just sit in my room by myself. I'm in this world. Mm-hmm. And everything I do, even just sitting in my room, affects the world, doesn't it?
Yes.
Like, don't you have to eat?
Yeah.
Where do you get the food from?
Gonna grow
Where'd you get Where'd you get the money from? Where'd you get the room from? How are you paying for the electricity? Who's paying for it? Why is there an electricity company? Why are there employees in that company? Everything you do, even if you just sit on your ass and don't do anything, you're still accepting the world the way it is. So for myself, because it's like, do I even have to say for myself? Like, it's like people want to say, oh, you're just trying to tell other people what to do. I mean, of course. Well, you can't really tell others what to do. You can only really tell yourself. Well, of course. So why do we need to keep talking about it? You know what I mean? Like, you're just speaking to yourself right now. Okay, fine. So are you. Who cares? Like, what does it matter? Why do we need to say all that? We're here in a world where we interact with each other, and what you do affects other people, and what they do affects you. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
That's pretty obvious, right? So then the next question is, okay, so if I'm going to change myself, the question is, what is it that's not best about myself that needs to be changed? And you're not going to figure that out just by thinking about it only. Like, we can think about it, you know what I mean? To the certain degree that we can, within ourselves, consider what are some things about us that we're accepting and allowing that are not best. But there's no way we can just go, it's only about me and my inner world. It's got nothing to do with the outside world. You know what I mean? Like I'm only accepting and allowing things within myself and things that I say and do just in a very limited sense. The fact that we have a money system that not everyone has access to effectively, I'm accepting and allowing that. You know, and if I'm mean to somebody and I abuse somebody just in an interpersonal relationship, I'm also doing that. But those are not fundamentally different things. Now, if I don't change it on the interpersonal level, I'm not going to be able to change the bigger picture one either, right? I mean, we can agree on that too, right?
Mhm.
So it's not like there's any we don't need to justify. Well, it's like Jordan Peterson, right? He says before you try to change the world, make your bed, get your house in order, right? Right.
Yeah.
That kind of goes without saying, because if you don't make your bed, if you don't get your house in order, how are you going to be able to make a difference?
Well, yeah, if you're talking about a real difference, I think a lot of people live in delusion. They're like, oh, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to make all this money, you know? So for them, well, they're probably not even making their bed anyway.
But isn't it the case that you can still make your bed and do all those things, but still create a business and sell a product that's not best for people?
100%. Yeah.
And then influence other businesses, systems in the world to manipulate people in a way where they would feel like they need your product, even though they don't actually need it. But it's like you're creating a need. And that's like century of the self, right? The creation of need artificially through public relations, marketing, and so forth.
Yeah.
Right. It's like this artificial creation of need.
And
so
artificial choice as well.
An artificial choice, right? So it's like, well, I'm choosing between Doritos or Funyuns, and it's like, you don't fucking need either of those things. They're trash.
Right.
Right. Like other than to fulfill some desire for a certain taste or something. Right. So, but that in itself was an artificial created desire. Right. So
it's crazy also, like just to hit on this point, because this blew me away the first time I saw it. It's crazy also how choosing between having things and not having things is also one of the artificial choices, like minimalism as being foisted on people. And it's so interesting to see how that's playing out today, you know, with, oh, okay, get everyone to accept minimalism, these tiny homes, all this stuff. And then 2030, what we're projecting is you're going to live in a tiny ass little apartment that you don't even own. You don't have many things. You don't own anything. You don't own anything. We give you the things that you're going to use. We take them from you, and we're going to use your space as well. So, you know, you'll be fine with it because you're kind of accepting all these things now. You're being marketed all these things at least now.
Right.
You know,
it's like, it's not so much giving people what they want, which is how it's justified. It's actually influencing what people want, because the people who give people what they want know what they're going to want to sell later.
Yeah.
Which is sell everybody on accepting not having anything, not owning anything.
Like now that I'm thinking about it even more directly, there were whole TV shows around tiny homes, you know, like it's not like just some idea that one person came up with and was like, you know, I think I want to live in a tiny home, and then all of a sudden everyone just wants to do it. No, it's like
a movement.
It's a movement because you've been marketed it the same way, like this van life style, like all this shit. It's the same.
And minimalism really comes from spirituality, right? Where it's like, give up all of your things and then you'll be a better person and all this kind of stuff. And then you always see that within like the law of attraction kind of communities, where it's like, you know, I don't care about material things or what. It's not really law of attraction. They're more material based, but you know, spirituality, new age kind of stuff.
There is a practical point to it. Go ahead, Mitch. Go ahead.
Well, no, share your practical point, then I'll share my take on this.
Okay, cool. There is a practical point though of not being possessed by your possessions.
Yeah.
It's not the same as being minimalist though. Like it's like having the ability to use what's here and
that point, they're not changing inside of not being possessed. So they're like, oh, just let go, change the environment.
Right.
Let go of everything.
Move closer to your mic.
Right. Yeah, move closer to your mic, or
are you guys talking about the bookshelf right now?
Oh shit, dude.
This is my attempt to basically change.
I was wondering, you were looking
possessions.
We just want to shit on you.
Yeah, you were looking pretty enlightened. So, but yeah, the point that I was making, I don't know if it was loud enough, but it's like, because they don't know how to change inside, they say, if I just release everything outside and I change the environment, then that will show that I'm I'll reflect who I am inside. That means
You can
I'm
still
the-
turn your mic up a little bit, I think.
Yeah,
right?
you can.
Oh shit,
I
but
don't know why it's like so low.
Your mic
Go
is being
secret.
minimalist
My-
right now.
Can you check your settings and make sure you're on that mic? I think you
Oh,
are, but I
shit. Hello?
think you are.
Yeah,
Sounds like it's that mic, but
yeah.
it's fine. It's not a big deal, I don't think, anyways.
Well,
But
okay,
No.
testing.
but yeah, but to your point,
Was it good now?
Yeah, it's good.
it's good enough. It's good enough. To your point, though, I think that is kind of what people are doing. It's like, well,
Oh shit, Brady.
no, because I think though, for that to really be the actual point, is that the person's not lying to themselves. Like they are lying to themselves. They know what they're doing.
Because
So
can you
that's
have a
the
lot-
idea, is that you're letting go of your possessions, and then they're kind of making the mistake. Oops, I thought I was letting go, but it was just my material. It's like, no, you know what you're doing. You're trying to get other people to think you're good and you're better than them because you don't need all these things. It's very actually deceptive. What
It's still a possession, like, but the possession turns from like the physical material thing to like the possession of your image, the graven image.
right? It's still an image.
Yeah.
And then there's the other part
Slow
where
it down, homie. Slow it down. Gotta clarify that image point. What does that mean?
So
important.
It's kind of challenging
It's
to
just the
explain
image
because
that you
it seems so
portray to
obvious.
others.
Yeah,
The
the
image that
image,
you portray
the
to
image that
others
you
and
have of
yourself.
yourself within your mind, the image, like it's really that for me anyway. You know, it's not just the image that you portray to others, but the idea that you think of yourself as, and how people are you think are perceiving you. You don't actually know how they're perceiving you, but the way that you think that they're perceiving you and everything, and then like you act out of that. And so, oh, I can't do this because I'm this kind of person, and then that won't come off as this kind of person, you know? And so people live that way. That's just how people live in today's society, especially because they don't even know that there's something outside. Like that's where they're operating from. They don't know to be beyond that, is like being aware that you're doing that. It's like a fish in water, so to speak. You know what I mean?
So for all my listeners, our listeners,
It's just your
you
listeners.
have your own
now.
fan
I
base.
tried to take
Just-
over the podcast.
Asif, I want to tell you something. Somebody told me the other day, they
All
were
the
like,
nasties.
Oh,
they're like,
did they say
yeah.
something nasty?
Yeah, they did say something nasty. They were like, I just don't like that Asif guy. Like he's too confident. I was like, dude, I love Asif.
Wait, somebody actually said that?
Yeah.
Did they say too
He's
confident?
too
They didn't say
confident?
too confident. They didn't say too
What did
confident.
they say,
That's how I took it.
What did they actually say?
They said he says bullshit sometimes. He just be saying shit sometimes. And I'm like, you know what I was actually thinking was they probably don't have all the context for what you are saying, because to me, I'm like, dude, the way you break things down makes it so simplistic. But for all your listeners, what were you going to say?
Asif, hold on. Don't say anything unless it's going to be absolutely perfect.
Or just
And
absolute
also, whoever sent you that thing, can you send me their podcast where everything they do is perfect all the time and make them
Asif leaves.
Asif exited the chat.
No, but that is such a real point though with the image thing. Like literally people are destroying their physical bodies over an image that they've created in their
Mhm.
mind that's not actually here in physical reality. Like high school girls, hello, tons of eating disorders,
Yeah.
tons of like having to have this exact brand of clothing in this exact style in order to have this image of what they see is cool. Like, and that's in multiple different sects. It's like there's the sporty girls, there's the artistic girls, there's the goth girls, there's like all these different categories where it's like within those subcategories you have different brands that you have to have and things like that.
Little did they know they could just get the self-perfected gear from our store.
That's like, you ever see those images of this? I'm sure we brought it up on the podcast before, of like the girls who are like copy and paste. And it's just a girl wearing like some blue jeans, some white Vans, and like
it's like the same.
Yeah, they're all exactly the same. It's like a group of girls
Yeah.
will be sitting in a corner, talking to each other. They're all having the same Starbucks cup. They all look exactly the same. All blonde hair, all that shit, right?
That's
It's like,
hilarious.
yeah.
Sounds like a cult. This is the point. This is the point that I wanted to share earlier when we're talking about people that are like minimalist, right? They're like, yeah, I don't have big desires. I'm just gonna kind of do my thing, right? I'm doing me or whatever, right? Well, guess what? That article, right? That Forbes article about welcome to 2030 where you own nothing and you're happy or whatever. It's like there are forces at play in the world right now seeking, and I mean, listen to last week's podcast, right? Seeking to lock down even more control, right?
Yep.
Like the opportunity we have right now.
Yeah, hold on, and they're not minimalists.
Yeah. Do you think Bill Gates is a minimalist, right? But as
He's got like several $100 million like properties that he can go
Exactly.
to anytime he wants. Yeah.
So for anyone who thinks that there's some sort of virtue in minimalism or whatever, it's like, sure, if you prefer to have less stuff, okay, cool, that's your preference, right?
It's
but
fine,
like,
right.
let's just be real though. Like,
Does it make you a better person?
No.
It definitely doesn't mean you're a better person. And what the fuck are we gonna do about the fact that right now there's this handful of elite that are putting in measures to make sure that there's no more upward mobility in the next decade, right? It's like we have this phenomenal opportunity right now to still equalize the playing field, you could say. And I mean, that's why I do what I do every single day.
I had a
And
friend.
I'm certain in it because we're here to equalize that.
I had a friend who wanted to like buy a tiny home and stuff like that. And he also wanted a family.
Tiny home for a tiny boy.
I'm like, do you think your girlfriend wants to live in there? He's like, no.
Okay, but no, hold on. But now you're getting close to what I was going to say is the real reason.
Oh shit, dude! Come on, dude.
And this is the reason why people, one, don't believe they can change the world, and two, don't want to change the world.
Let me take the
and
words out of your mouth.
three,
Tiny home, tiny dick. Shout out to the guy who talked shit about me. You know, hey, if you got something to say, hit me up. Send me a message.
you say it straight to my dick. All right.
No, we can talk. Give me some feedback. You know what that means?
Jesus, I would never call you with feedback if you're gonna look like that.
It's okay. People are just listening. Don't worry.
That is crazy.
Yeah, feel free. Hit me up. Don't be weak. Come on.
Okay, but this is getting to the point. Okay, so why people believe you can't change the system? Okay, let's.
What were the three things that you listed?
One, why they think that you can't. Two, why they don't want to. And three was just so I had 3 points. There could be another one. I just couldn't think of it. Okay, but here's my point. Why people want to go to the minimalism route. Again, like Mitch said, if it's your preference, that's fine. Like, I don't prefer onions. Okay, I don't think everyone else should
pretty
have onions
minimalist
or
if
not
you
have
ask me.
onions. But you know what I mean? Like, no, what I mean is I don't care if people like onions. I don't care. It's okay. I'm not like, oh, therefore we should get rid of all the onions. Right? I just don't prefer them, right? So for myself. So it's okay if somebody prefers minimalism, but there's so many times where we say we prefer something, but it's actually a program. So for myself, I don't justify the onions. I'm like, maybe there's some memory or something as to why I don't prefer them. But I'll tell you this, when I was a kid, when I was younger, I would be, I don't want to say afraid, but like, well, kind of like I'd be afraid of there being onions in my food. Like not like a terror, but like I don't want to eat it. I don't want onions in my food. Like if there's onions in my food, like it's going to be a problem. Like it's going to ruin my meal. Now, if there's onions, I'll just either take them out if I can, or I'll eat it. It doesn't matter. Like I don't need to make it a big emotional thing. Does that make sense? Yeah. So even though I haven't necessarily identified why I don't prefer them, and maybe it's something beyond just some experience I had. Maybe it's a genetic thing. Maybe it's something I don't know, but I'm not going to allow it to control my life, right? I'm not going to allow it to create emotions. I'm going to look at the point and then be here and either eat the onions or don't eat the onions. You see what I'm saying? Like my preference is not going to control me, right? So in that same sense, if your preference is to have minimalist sort of living situation because you just don't want to have a bunch of things to deal with or whatever, that's fine. But then make sure you're not allowing it to control you or to manipulate others in a way that's not best.
Right.
Like since my preference is to be minimalist, therefore you create an idea that it makes you a better person, and therefore everyone
You
else
walk
should
into
be
somebody's house
minimalist.
and you're like, oh, you have so much stuff.
Right. And therefore we should not allow anyone to have anything because that they're bad people, or there's so many ways you can go there where it's like now you're going way beyond the point of preference. You're actually using it to, you're actually trying to manipulate everyone else so that you can justify your preference instead of it just being a preference. Okay.
Which is the same thing as like hating on white people. If you don't like white people, that's awful. You should change that. But it's like trying to get everybody to hate white people. Isn't that like the onions? Okay.
No. I see your point there.
So
That was accurate. That was 100.
but I have a question. Is it best for someone to hoard stuff and be buried in stuff in their house?
Or love white people? No? Okay. No.
No, obviously not. But no, but there's always extremes. And so my whole point is if it's really actually a preference, that's okay. Obviously there's some things that are not acceptable to prefer.
Yeah.
Anything that really physically abuses or harms another person, right? And that's why when you get to the point of this point of minimalism, if you're then using it as a way to impose some opinion on the world and therefore affect other people in a way that's not best, that's when it moves from opinion to something that's not best, right?
Right.
But part of where it comes from is not for everybody. For those who have a genuine preference, this doesn't apply. But for those who like, it's not actually a preference, it's something you are accepting to cover up something else. One of those things it can come from is, I don't know how to make money. Yeah, I have all these desires, but I realize those desires are evil. And actually, I don't need those things. And I'm a minimalist, and because that's a spiritual level of attainment. See, like, to go into all this, like creating a positive image of yourself, really because you don't know how to fucking make money. And now the people who know how to make money, that doesn't mean they're better than the people who don't. It's not about that either. But we'll get into that more. I don't want to go too far, but there's a reason why the person doesn't know how to make money. And I'm not saying it's because they are themselves a bad person, a loser, anything like that. You'll hear people say stuff like that. We may even joke like that from time to time. But what makes someone a loser is accepting and allowing weakness in themselves. Not understanding something.
Oh.
Not bad. That's what you wanted to say, right?
Right. But you
What,
get
sorry,
what I'm
repeat what
saying?
you said. I actually missed it, man.
Make someone being a loser in the context of what I mean when I say it is that you're accepting and allowing weakness.
Mhm.
That is not best.
Mhm.
Versus you just don't know something. You don't understand something. That doesn't make you a loser.
Yeah.
Not being able to do something doesn't make you a loser.
Yeah. So
Right now in the system, not knowing something is going to make you a loser in the system because you're losing. So when I say losing, I don't mean actual losing money or something like that. I mean, you're creating for yourself and others an environment in a world that's not best because you're accepting and allowing something that's not best within yourself. That is how I've redefined the word loser.
What I wanted to talk about, or like what I wanted to mention earlier when I said like for all the listeners, and like we might be talking about a specific image, right? That we're talking about a concept. So look at it for yourself. Even if you're not a minimalist or you're not super spiritual where you have to have, a flowing robe every time you talk, whatever, like just look at it for yourself, because we all have those like identities of everybody knows me as this kind of person. So if I do this, it'll be out of character of what everybody has of me in their mind.
It could be
you can't
anything.
be afraid of that.
It could be anything. It could be, even on the flip side, the guy who has lots of stuff or the woman who has lots of stuff because they feel like it makes them a better person. You can do it on that side too. The person who is
Always
really
go to
religious
church on Sunday. Yeah.
right. The person who's an atheist, right? Because they're so much smarter than everybody else. The person who is a scientist or who studies science or reads lots of books, like these assholes who have these walls full of books over here. And just
What are you saying, Jess? You're muted.
obviously it's not me. Yeah, I think you're muted, Jess.
So also it's like Republicans, Democrats, they
Right.
literally see the other
Right.
side as idiotic, insane, crazy, the devil, evil.
Yeah, okay. It's knowledge and information that you accept as part of yourself that you allow to make you feel superior or inferior to somebody else.
Yeah.
There, we covered it all, isn't it?
Hard.
It's that point. It's knowledge and information,
Bam.
right? And so now in a world where having access to understanding certain things gives you a competitive advantage and an ability to make money, then that allows you to accumulate physical things that require other people who don't have that knowledge to have to go and basically be slaves so that they can create those things so you can accumulate them. And so it requires you to either create and or accept a world where people have less or different knowledge than you. Because if every it's like, okay, this classic example, you all have heard it, right? Well, if we paid doctors the same as janitors, then who would be the janitor? No, sorry, who would be the doctor?
Nobody. It's too much
Right?
work.
Well, what if we paid janitors the same as the doctor?
Right.
Who would be the janitor?
Nobody.
So
Oh,
now let me ask you a question. Would a doctor
wait.
ever
What
go-
was the answer to that second?
Oh, there's no answer
I
yet.
feel like I would.
Is the doctor willing to go
Go to
dig the
school.
ditch? Is the doctor willing to go dig the ditches?
No.
Is the doctor janitors? Do they dig ditches? I meant dig ditches, but
Nobody
janitors,
knows.
same fucking thing.
Are
Is the doctor
smoking-
willing to be the janitor? Are they willing to clean the fucking toilets all day?
Yeah,
No.
clean the floor. Yeah,
They're
yeah.
not willing to do that.
No.
Okay. So somebody has to do it. Who's going to do it?
Robot.
No. The person who doesn't fucking know enough to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Oh, like in this world.
They
Yes.
have to
In this
the
world, yeah.
physical
If they knew
labor.
if they knew the knowledge of a doctor, they'd be a fucking doctor.
Right, 100%.
But here's a brilliant thing, okay? And see,
Oh,
I
okay.
would have never taken it to this level. Here's what Bernard Pullman said. But if there was no disease, why would we need doctors?
It wouldn't.
If everybody knew how to think properly, eat properly, exercise, and there was no improper sanitation or sanitary conditions. In other words, if we created the conditions where there was no need for disease, there was just not created, there wouldn't be any doctors. So doctors, for them to exist, requires a world where there's rampant disease, problems, accidents, and so forth.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And who gets paid the most in this world?
Doctors.
Yeah,
So
dude.
why is there any incentive in our subconscious, unconscious to create that world where, yeah, but I mean, I want to make a lot of money. And so therefore this position has to exist.
Yeah,
Wow.
right?
Do you see what I'm saying? Like if you really look at it. So if the janitor knew what the doctor knew, they
Same
wouldn't
with
be a janitor.
lawyers. That's the same with all those positions where you have to go to school for 6+ years and you get paid more than $200,000 a year. It's just this like prestigious thing that you have to work towards, and once you get there, you're the top of the middle class, and it's the shining armor. It's just the best thing. But really, you don't need any of those positions.
And you know
Yeah,
what's
like
funny is a lot of these nurses know way more than the doctors.
Right,
They work way harder.
right.
And in some cases, they work equally the same. But I'm saying there's a lot of cases where the nurses work just as much or harder, and they still have to go through basically the same education. But they will never make anything close to what the doctor makes.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because of a difference in memorization ability, school grades, life circumstances, all kinds of things that are created from a systemic perspective.
Mhm.
Right, so there's an inherent inequality in everything that we're accepting, and the basis of it is inequality of what? Understanding of how something works. If everyone had that equally effective, see, I didn't want to spill it already, but if everyone had the same equal understanding of everything, you see, you wouldn't have this inequality,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Where did Mitch go? Is he coming back or what?
Yes.
I was laughing at
Teddy,
that. I didn't want to
Teddy
spill
needed
it
to
already.
poop.
Okay, that's fine. I was just trying to see.
He can get him to poop better than I can get him to.
Teddy
Dude,
is their
Mitch
dog.
gets me to poop all the time. What did you
Yeah.
say?
Teddy is our dog.
Teddy is their dog.
And Mitchell is the poop whisperer, so he's going and doing that quick.
Literally whispers to about waist level, and I just shit my pants every time.
He whispers in the brown note. It's another
Too
frequency. Most people try to raise their frequency. Mitch lowers his frequency
He's
to
next
the
level.
level of.
He's next
Yes.
level.
Of diarrhea. Diarrhea is a
Um,
low vibration.
See, that's called comedic relief, right? When I start lecturing, you guys just talk about poop. Okay?
You know,
Was it a success?
No.
No.
He's learning how to not jump on people. So that was
That's another success.
That point that you were making in regards to like the video that we were watching earlier with those women and how they were like
Tripping.
they were tripping. They were tripping. But like the point that you were making as far as them or other people, I forget what I was gonna say. Never mind.
Well, just to fill Mitch in, we were just talking about the point of janitors versus doctors.
And
If
accepting
the
a knowledge
janitor knew what the doctor knew,
equality.
there wouldn't be any janitors because they'd all want to be doctors. But if there was no disease, if there was no like accidents, and we had a system that where people basically were healthy, there wouldn't even be doctors either. And so they even require inequality of sanitary conditions, health understanding.
Oh,
Because
I
I mean, how
remember.
many people right now go to doctors just because they fucking eat terribly?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also in here, and stress,
Yeah.
right? And people have all this stress because they're in a competitive system. So it's like, instead of questioning that, we justify it because, I mean, the doctors deserve to make all this money because they go to school for all that time. And it's like, they just why is that a reward?
Yeah.
They work so hard to sit in school and memorize stuff. It's like, how is that, like, how hard does a janitor work?
No, how dare you talk about our frontline workers like that,
Our
Cameron?
frontline workers, like a front line. Where else do we hear that terminology?
I think there is a canine pill that's called Frontline, you know?
It's not that.
War,
You have
dude.
any other guessers?
This is a war.
The war.
The
This is a
war.
against
It's a
COVID.
war, everybody. We're fighting the viruses. It's humans against the viruses.
Dude.
I was on the Harvard website today, and they're like, as COVID continues to rage on, I'm like, COVID isn't raging. What?
Hey, have you guys seen the CDC's article on zombie preparation?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. That's fucking hilarious. What is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, you
It's
know.
on the CDC's website.
Yeah,
It's-
say it with a
it's
straight
whole
face.
article.
Here's the thing. I think
He has an article.
they're saying
on
it in
preparation.
a tongue-in-cheek
What the
way.
fuck?
They're saying it in
Are
a
they?
tongue-in-cheek way to get people to take something, like it's like a way of raising awareness about things. So they're pretending like, oh, here's our tips and tricks for the zombie apocalypse. Now, because there's a lot of the conspiracy people who are like, look, they even are admitting there's going to be a zombie apocalypse, right? Okay. If you can process information, you can look at it and you can see clearly they're just trying to do some campaign to get people to pay attention to what they're saying, right? But the fact that they have to do that, the problem is, how do you know when you should take them seriously and when you shouldn't?
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Fauci went on CNN and said he went to the North Pole and gave the vaccine to Santa.
Holy
was-
Now, adults know he's kidding, right?
I didn't know that.
No, you didn't know he was kidding, or you didn't know he said that?
I didn't know he was kidding.
Okay. Everybody, we're going to break the news on the air to Drake. Santa's not real.
I vaccinated Santa Claus.
If you need to take some time,
No.
and-
Santa's not real
and-
because he
if you need a moment,
he morphed.
if you needed some time,
Can I share my screen? Can we watch this Dr. Fauci?
Yeah.
Zombie Santa.
Coming
no, don't play it. I don't want any reason why we would get any like copyright strikes.
True.
But people can go look it up. It's there. Like, it's not a secret at all. But my point is, it's the same thing. Like, so are you joking or not?
Yeah.
Right? Why
He's
is
just joking on all of it.
What happened?
No, but you don't know. So how do you know? He's the scientist, right? So you're supposed to just believe him. Isn't that what you're saying you want your kids to do? He's the scientist. He said he vaccinated Santa Claus. You don't need to be afraid. We're gonna have blah blah blah. Right?
And they're like, well, no, it's joking. You know, you can tell it's a joke, right? It's like the child can't tell that.
Okay, the child is like dumb.
You know, okay, to this
Just like
point.
the average person reading the zombie article.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. Is some people are gonna be like, oh my gosh.
I was in a pool yesterday. I was at a pool party, and there's a kid there, and the adults were trying to get him to swim and, like, you know, just put your head in the water and start swimming and everything. And this one woman put her head under the water and came back up, And she was like, you can do it. And he puts his head under the water, comes back up, and like you can see like his eyes are irritated, right? And I'm like, oh, did you get something in your eye? And the woman was like, no, there's nothing. There's nothing in your eyes. It's just, you're just crying. Like, and so when she left, I just explained to him, like, so when you're in a pool, typically there's chlorine, maybe some salt in the water, and that can cause your eyes to be irritated. And so it might feel like they're itchy. And he goes, oh, that's why my eyes are bothering me. And like after that, then he was like, okay, I'm going to go get my floaty now. Before then, he didn't actually want to get in the pool because he couldn't understand, like, this other person's telling me nothing's happening, but
this woman's like literally gaslighting him.
Yeah. But like,
she's like, no, you're the crazy one.
But it's
there's
like,
nothing in the water.
But that's how people explain things to kids and then expect them to go into the world and actually have some understanding or like be able to put things together themselves. You're not even giving them a real explanation. You're not giving them a real foundation there. That's bullshit, Right. And the point that I wanted to make earlier was that point of lack of education, because you had brought this up when we were watching this video of these women and they were getting very defensive, getting very emotional, getting very like, they had to hold this position because they had a lack of education,
Just to give context, it was women who were making money from OnlyFans, and then they were on a podcast where the guys were challenging them basically to say, like, you can't just continue doing OnlyFans and assuming that you're just going to make all this money forever. Like, you need to be investing that or doing something with it if that's how you're going to make your money. You can't just sit there on OnlyFans and expect that forever in itself is going to continue to grow and you're just going to become like mega millionaires is never going to run out. Like, you need to take that money and do something with it. They're just trying to explain that to them. And that when we're becoming very defensive because they didn't understand that. And they're thinking, because the guy's saying, well, you're not doing certain things. They're thinking, they're acting as if the guy was attacking them and insulting them and all that, even though clearly he was not. He was just explaining, you need to consider these points. But they were like, how dare you tell me what to do with my money? And he's like, I mean, I'm helping you understand that if you don't do this, it's going to end up being a problem for you. Mm-hmm. And they're like, you're just jealous because women can get money easily. And he's like, that's my point. You can show your tits and people will give you money. And I want you to understand, that's fine if you want to do that. From what he was saying, that's fine. But if you just take that money and spend it and you don't create some kind of investments or something else.
Because in 10 years, you're not going to be able to show off your body like that.
It's like literally read a fucking Robert Kiyosaki book. Right. If you don't move from the small business to the business owner to the investor quadrant, you can't just stay in your small business with your boobs. Because eventually someone's going to not want to look at them.
Your small boobs.
I'm sorry to tell you. They're small boobs.
Even if they're small or large, it's still a small
They can be big ones. They can be small ones. It doesn't matter. It's not a sustainable business model.
They're going to be saggy in 30 years, baby.
And it's funny because at the same time, man, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but fuck it, it's the podcast, right? At the same time, the women want to be like, men are such pigs and all they want is this and that. And it's like, okay, let's all stop being pigs. And now you can't make money.
Yeah, your income is all.
So what are you going to do now?
Yeah.
Like, it's a whole fucked up system, not justifying any of it. But you could just see how the common sense doesn't come into the equation in this particular case. But I just want to give context for what you were.
Yeah, it's just really that point of, because of their lack of education, they wanted to defend that point. It's the same thing that we're experiencing in our society at large, as far as we have a lack of education of any other way of doing things other than what we've been shown, with doctors wanting to be doctors and they get more money for being a doctor, et cetera. And so any point that's challenged within any individual, it doesn't have to be you're challenging a doctor. Within any individual, they want to defend this system. And they're taking that same defensive posture.
Yeah. So that defensive posture, maybe in a moment you can pull up that, you want to get that ready, that graphic.
Yeah.
Because we have what we call a teaching tool. Okay. And it's going to help us kind of explain some points, right? But you see actually, let me go ahead and have you pull it up and then is it just going to replace us in the video?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea?
Yeah, it'll replace us. We'll go to the side.
Okay, cool.
If you're
I'm
listening,
just curious,
to
like how it's gonna look.
Spotify,
Okay,
you gotta find it.
so
Does that take up the full screen?
If you're not on YouTube, feel free to find the podcast on YouTube because we're showing
This
something.
is
really-
one of those moments where it is better to, if you are on the Spotify or Apple, stop the stream here, go to YouTube, like just look at the timestamp and then open up YouTube and continue from there.
We literally don't care if we get views on Spotify. It's really irrelevant. Just go look at the video because we're not going to post this graphic. This is a rough draft. We have another version, but we just have this one easily accessible. But basically what I want you to focus on is on the, I guess it's the left side. And yeah, I don't know why it would be flipped, but anyways, so it's on the left side. I'm like, maybe it's flipped backwards and you're reading it backwards. For the dyslexics, it's on the right side. Okay. All right. So, but if you look down at the very bottom, very bottom, this is what we call the tree of evil versus the tree of life. So you have the tree of evil on the left, the tree of evil on the right, right? But if you look down at the very bottom, you have this point under the roots where it's like lack of education versus education over on the tree of life, right? And so this is really where we're starting at what we're talking about. And we've talked about this a lot. It's just that now we have a tool to be able to visualize and so people can understand. But in essence, this is where everything stems from. And going back to the point with the doctors versus the janitors and so forth, it's simply a lack of education. And this is so important to understand because those who don't even think about this, even the smartest people in the fucking world don't understand this. Yeah. Even the educators, even everybody doesn't. And if there are some that understand it, they're not doing anything about it. Okay. But let's just assume for a moment, no one really understands this. So what will people generally argue as to why you'll either make it or specifically, why won't you make it in the capitalist system? What's the reason why? Because there's equal opportunity for everyone, right?
Yeah. It has to do with work hard and responsibility.
Right.
Usually.
But we're saying that's not true. It's not about working hard. It's right here.
Right. It's actually
right?
education.
Because if that were true, the janitor would make more than the doctor, or at least the same.
Yeah.
Right? The coal miner would make more than the doctor. Absolutely. Their work is way more dangerous, way harder. The long-term consequences are more drastic. Like going down in a coal mine every day, give me a break. Right? So it's not about that. And if the coal miner knew what the doctor knew and had the education the doctor had, would they be a coal miner? Yes or no?
No.
Now, what is going to be the objection to that? Not in terms of I'm wrong. Like let's assume somebody accepts what I'm saying. What's the next objection?
Well, we need coal miners.
Right. Or everybody would be a doctor. We won't need that many doctors.
Yeah.
Right. So you see how just the idea of
we wouldn't need the doctors.
What?
If everyone was educated, we wouldn't need the doctors, so we wouldn't have everyone as doctors.
It would look very different what a doctor.
Well, exactly. If everyone knew what the doctor knew, it's not even about would we need, like, why would we not need doctors if everyone knew what a doctor knew?
Because you would be your own doctor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'd be your own fucking doctor.
You'd only need like someone to do operations, a surgeon.
Right, a surgeon.
Yeah.
Which, fine, we can still have surgeons. Right? But in that society, would they be paid way more than everybody else? Or would it just be another job? What?
She said, how would she get a plastic surgery done then? If there's no surgeons.
For your Instagram?
No, it's for my OnlyFans.
It's gonna last like forever.
Unfortunately for everybody listening, Jess.
Surgeons.
Unfortunately for everybody listening, Jess does not have an OnlyFans. However, fortunately, I do. So. Okay. So, but I only have one subscriber. It's me.
And he only posts pictures of books. So it's
I tip myself, right? Yeah, it's just books. Okay, so lack of education versus education. And we're not going to explain everything about this. There's a lot of dimensions to this. We're just going to go through it a little bit, and I'm sure maybe we'll even open up points. All right, you guys jump in where you want.
Lack of education at the bottom. I don't know if it's straight.
I can.
Okay.
I can.
I have a big monitor. I don't know if that changes anything, but okay. I also have it full screened.
Yeah, because I can't see anything.
You can or can't, Asif?
Okay,
no, we can.
Okay, yeah, I think it's the full screen, so I'm assuming it's going to show up on. As long as Drake can see it.
If you can't see it at the roots, at the very, very bottom, it says education on the tree of life side and lack of education on the tree of.
Okay, so let's go up a little bit. I want to start more.
Cam, your mic's distorting a little bit. Either back up a tiny
I'm just
bit.
too close to it.
Yeah, that's cool.
So let's just start at the doubt part. I want to give you all an example of how this can be used, right? because what we were kind of talking about earlier, I was making this point about people thinking that the system can't change, or they can't change it, or they don't want to. Right. Well, actually, look at evil, for example, right?
Oh shit.
What kind of evil is happening in the world that people are like, this is not okay. I want things to change. I wish they could
Child
change.
Racism.
Child abuse, racism,
Sex trafficking.
all these things, plus people going like, Bill Gates is trying to do X, Y, and Z to the population, and all that stuff too. You
Right,
know,
health.
all the evil people teaching everybody the world is a globe when they really think it's flat, and this and that. Like whatever you think is going on, that's the evil stuff that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And then how do you feel about it?
Angry.
Okay? See?
Fuck.
It's
dude.
like obvious. This is very obvious, right?
Yeah.
Now,
I'm
why do you feel
brainwashed.
angry about it?
Because of that other person. Blame.
Right, you're blaming Bill Gates, right? Because he's gonna make you eat some crickets. Okay,
What were the other points? You're blaming white people. You're blaming
right.
men.
It's
You're
the white
blaming-
people that are bad. It's the men, exactly, right? It's
Blaming
this,
corporations.
it's blaming
Corporations.
the corporations.
Government.
You're blaming Asif for being so confident and
The
sexy.
opposite political side.
The politicians, right?
Right, you're blaming the politicians. You're blaming the Democrats. You're blaming these people. You're blaming
Climate
Texas
change.
for opening up.
People who don't believe in climate change.
Blaming Greta Thunberg
Right,
for
the
being autistic. Whatever it is.
BLM,
Anti-maskers, the anti-vaxxers,
BLM.
the right wingers,
everybody.
Those one zones.
anyone but myself.
The zones
pretty
where
much.
there's no
Yeah.
government.
You never blame yourself. There is no such thing as blaming yourself, is there? Okay, so now why is that blame even occurring?
Because people don't want to take responsibility.
Hey, ask anybody who complains about politicians. Even Candace Owens, right? Mela has been watching Candace Owens, and she's like, I lost so much respect for her just watching her over time because she's not willing to do anything. Every time somebody asks her,
Who said
"Are
that?
you-"
Who said that?
Mela
Mela.
was talking about how
Okay,
when
okay,
Candace
but-
Owens gets asked when will you go into politics? You always complain about will you go into politics? No.
Hey, but hold on. She just had a baby.
Mela did not have a baby. No, I'm joking.
Candace Owens just had a
yeah.
baby.
Yeah, she did.
I don't expect anybody who had a baby to do anything.
Right.
It's not their responsibility. They have a baby. That's their responsibility. They should take full, because and people said, wow, that's very sexist of you. Okay, that's very, you don't give a shit about babies of you. Like, what about the baby? Okay, she's the baby's mom. That's her responsibility. Now,
So let me clarify my point. It's just like everybody who talks about politics talks shit about politicians. They're not willing to get into
But
politics.
it's a totally valid point. It's a totally valid point. Meaning, they're always like, well, I could never go into politics. Yeah. It's
Why?
'cause
Why?
They don't
Why though?
understand. Well,
Why
we'll
though?
get into that.
It's that point. It's that next point.
Right.
They see it
So-
as separate from themselves.
But what were you going to say,
That's-
Asif? What's the next
That's what I'm
one?
saying. It's
Yeah,
why.
it's fear.
They
It's
don't
straight
want
up
to go
fear.
into politics because they fear going into politics.
Right. Because they're afraid, right?
You're
And that's
afraid
why
of
I'm
doing
saying
what
with
they're
Candace
doing.
Owens, she's got a baby. I mean, what are people going to do and say about, like that's
Threaten
that's
and
valid.
all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. So, hey, her husband should do it, right? Okay. So, but let's look at the fear point. Why are you upset with Bill Gates? Why are you upset with Fauci?
You probably fear them.
Right?
Fear
Like we were
what-
talking about Fauci earlier, right?
Mhm.
Are we blaming him?
No.
I don't know. I'm looking over here because the things, you guys are on my side. But my point is, yeah, no, we're not blaming him. Because we're explaining what the actual problem is. Because if people weren't retarded, they wouldn't listen to him. If you weren't lying to your kids about Santa Claus, in other words, you were educating them
Right.
about, I bought the fucking presents, okay? Some kids in China in a workshop made the presents for you.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Like, we're not buying that kind of bullshit because while you're sitting here begging and crying, because you don't understand, you're begging and crying for this kid to have a slave job. Okay. So yes, they're in the shop. We can buy them if you want to use them, but you need to understand where it's really happening, where it's really coming from. Okay.
Yeah.
Put things into perspective. All right. So there's fear because I don't want to get the microchip. I don't want to give up my ownership of property or whatever the fucking 2030 stuff is. I don't want to be in a surveillance society, all these things, right? So where is that fear coming from, right? Meaning, why would you be afraid of what's going to happen in 2030? If you are going to stand up in the world, go into politics, change the system, do whatever needs to be done, make sure everybody has what they need, so that that's not even an attractive offer for everybody, giving up all your property, unless you had doubt within yourself that one, you could do it, and that two, it could be done.
Yeah.
If you didn't have that doubt, you wouldn't be afraid. Like, I'm telling you, do I look like I'm afraid? Do I seem like I'm afraid of what's going to happen? If I was afraid, I wouldn't be talking about it. If I was really afraid that we were going to lose and fail, why the fuck would I be saying what I'm saying right now?
Yeah.
Why would we be doing this podcast?
Right. The last thing we'd be doing is be talking on a podcast and putting it on YouTube. We'd be just
Indicating
going
what we
about our
stand
business and trying to hide from the system. What you say?
Yeah. Yeah, like talking about what we actually stand for.
Like, it's the last
Like,
thing we want to
we
talk
stand
about.
against everything that currently exists from the perspective of self-interest.
Okay. So no doubt. But where does the doubt come from? Why would you have doubt that you can change the system?
You don't see yourself as equal to the system or equal to the ability to change.
Like the people who created it, for example.
Like, let's just think about it for a second. Like, who's the one doing all these bad things in this hypothetical scenario? We're talking about Bill Gates, right? Let's just say that's the person you're blaming, right? Who's the evil person and all this stuff?
Or
Right,
Justin
you see yourself
Trudeau,
as
or,
less than him.
or Joe Biden, or Donald Trump.
Exactly. Right. What just said, like, you see yourself as not equal to him.
Yeah.
And it's not just that you don't, it's not just that you see yourself that way. It is that it's that you're not equal.
Yeah.
In the context of what we're going to get to in a second, in terms of the value of each being, everybody is equal. Bill Gates is not more valuable as a being than you are, or I am, or anybody is, or any child, or animal, or plant, or bug, or bacteria. There is no inequality, in fact. And that's why everything in the world is happening, is so that we can realize this. So we can become aware of this fact. We cannot dominate and enslave others just because we're in a position of superiority in a system that we've created. To create that superiority, it won't last. It's not sustainable because, look, let me ask you a question. Are you more valuable than one particle of virus? Because that one virus just brought the entire civilization of humanity that's been built over thousands and thousands of years to its knees, to a grinding halt. A tiny little bacteria or virus that, I mean, technically no one's even seen. Right? So, like, if you want to act like, but humans are the dominant species and it's like, obviously not, because you're wearing a fucking mask. You've got a muzzle on because of something you can't even see. But the point is, the inequality is, in this context, is you don't know how to stand in a room with Bill Gates and sell him on doing something different. Like, imagine you in a room, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, what's the Chinese guy, Xi Jinping, the old guy, that's our president, whatever his name is, all these other guys, right? You don't feel, it's not feel, you would be like, oh my gosh, Mr. So-and-so, oh wow, oh my God. Like, you would not be able to handle it. Because to you, it'd be like a big deal. Do you think when they're walking in that room that they're like, oh, I'm going to meet the leader of China? Like, they're just like, all right, it's like you going to work. You're like, your customer's coming. You're not like, oh my God. Now, the first day you went to work, you might've been nervous, isn't it? But after you were there 100 times, you're like, same old, right?
Right. Yeah.
But when you're born into a family like that, you already automatically feel like it's totally normal. So, if you don't know that inequality can change, you see, what happens is you go up this chain. You climb up these branches like a little stupid monkey.
Yeah.
Right?
Be monked.
You know what's the problem is? Like, there's no leaves on there. It's really easy to fall.
Yeah.
Right? But my point is, you climb up these little branches and there ain't nothing up there except nothing. Right? So the inequality is you don't know how things work. You don't know how to make money. Just like those girls in that video we were talking about, they don't know how to invest. So all they can do is defend themselves. And then because they have the doubt, fear, blame, anger, and then they start acting like nasty, spiteful, jealous, defensive, angry people. and they're blaming all their problems on somebody else. And this is, what's the most evil thing that you can do?
Blame somebody else for your problems.
Is
Yeah.
convince somebody else, treat them, convince them that they are a slave, is to enslave another person,
Mm.
isn't it? Isn't that what we're all facing right now? Like the worst
Yeah.
thing that is slavery, right?
Yeah, and
Because-
slavery is just convincing someone that they can't change, that they can't educate themselves. That
It's
they
saying
are
I have
inferior,
control over you.
They are less than, yeah.
Right. I have control over you. And what's interesting about it is the slave master is just as much a slave, because now you have to fucking control your slave all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you're a slave.
Like, you
you're
can't just
slave.
walk around with like, hey, it's such a great time. Like we're all friends here. You have to constantly like be like watching your back because you're afraid the slaves are going to revolt. So you have to create education systems that convince them from the beginning that they're slaves, and then they can do about it. Because by the time you're older than 7, do you have any time to correct this problem at the bottom?
No.
By the time you're 7 years old, you're already up at ground level. You're either going to be over here on the right or you're going to be over here on the left. And then from that point on, you're either climbing up to evil or you're climbing up here to live. And obviously climbing is a metaphor, but I mean, you're going to be in every single moment resonating all of these points all the time. Like it's just automatically coming out of you.
Hey, hang on. Because that was really cool what you just said about like the most evil thing that you can do, because it has the starting point of, if you are a slave master, you essentially become like the god of your slave, right?
Mhm.
You have control and power over them. You see yourself as unequal to them, and you are superior to them. You are over them, right? And that is literally like how we've constructed this world in general, our society in general. We have a god over us, which we give all our power and authority and responsibility to, and all of that. And it's not actually considering everything here as equal. We as individuals being equal, we being equal to our environment, equal to this world, equal to life itself. And that is the starting point of where we are at with humanity right now. And that is evil. I just wanted to put that in there.
It's a great point, right? The evil is in essence, it's that we're justifying a system that is every single moment producing children who do not have a proper education about how reality works, who they are. Because what's the truth of who we are?
We are the creators of this world.
Right. We are beings and we are life. That's why we're here in the first place. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be able to exist.
Yeah.
But we don't understand that, and we never understood it. And I'm not sitting here pretending like I fully understand it. But I'm certain about it being the case. Right? I'm not someone who has understood it all. I'm just certain that there's only 2 choices. You're either life or you're not. And so the journey, the process, the purpose is to realize yourself as who we really are. And at the very least, to support others to do it, to do what you can to be a part of changing the system and systems in this world, so that at the very bottom of this tree, we create the opportunity for children to become educated in and become equal to that point. And let me ask you a question. How could it hurt everybody if everybody understood everything equally?
The only person it would hurt are the people on top, because they would have less.
Yeah, the
Would it
person who
actually
wants to
hurt
take
them?
advantage.
Would it actually hurt them though?
No,
Right, actually,
not
that-
actually.
I mean, to a certain degree, maybe like if everybody knew everything right away, then suddenly they'd be like, hey, these motherfuckers have been abusing us. Let's get them.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you truly understood everything, wouldn't you also realize, oh, but
you
they were
participated
also-
in it.
I participated in it.
Yeah.
Also, they didn't understand either.
Yeah.
So what, and also wouldn't you understand what would be the purpose of getting back at them? You would have to first look and see, can they change? Are
Right.
they changing? Will they change? Can I support them to change? And if so, why would I just immediately try to hurt them? Because isn't that just going to recreate a whole society and a whole situation? Like, okay, you would immediately stop and you'd be like, we don't need revenge. It's not necessary. Right? And the revenge that everyone's afraid of, even the elite, is already happening, is it not?
Yeah.
Because even the elite, you see them walking around with masks. They're just as afraid as everybody else. And everyone thinks like, oh, Bill Gates, he knows it's not a real virus or blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you don't know what he knows, dude. The guy is getting a divorce. Like, you don't know what the fuck makes him tick. You don't understand him. You're just trying to act like you're better than him. Just like we're going back to the minimalist stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would never do what he did in his position. You would never be in his position.
But
when
also
you think about the level of responsibility he takes, huh?
But also you would do what he did in his position. Because like just looking,
because you're doing what he would do in your position.
Right.
Everyone's doing what each other would do in their own lives. Like, because fundamentally nobody's better than anyone else in this context. Nobody has it more figured out. I'm not a better person than anybody else.
Yeah.
So, but I do understand something that other people don't. That doesn't make me a better person. It gives me a higher level of responsibility.
Exactly.
Same thing with each of you. Same thing with anybody else even listening to this podcast. And then we're saying, go study Destiny. Use TechnoTutor. Join Jen. Why? Why are we talking about these three things? Okay. Actually, you want to take it off there? Off the...
Yeah, sure.
Put it back on the thing. Let's go into that for a moment. What happened to Asif? He's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to make this point because I said this on the Hangout on Friday, but I want to put it here as well. That point of like he's doing, or you're doing what he would do in your position. It's the same thing. Like when you look at a politician and they're either taking a bribe or they're afraid of a threat, right? Where they will make decisions based on, and you talk shit about them or you see them and you're like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? How could they do this? But we do that in our individual lives all the time when we either do something out of feeling, that's taking the bribe, right? That we know we shouldn't be doing, or we avoid things that we know we should be doing out of the emotion, trying to avoid that emotion of like, it's going to feel so boring or whatever it is, the emotion that you're trying to avoid. You're trying to remove yourself from that threat. It's the same exact thing. You're doing it every day on a very local scale, and you can't even stand up to that. How are you expecting to be in that position and do any better? That's way more responsibility.
Yeah, and what are you actually doing to be in that position? And then this is the point that Asif was saying earlier. The person was, I would never want to be in that position.
Right.
And it's like, then you don't have a right to complain about it.
Right.
Because you're not taking the responsibility to actually change anything.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm not blaming that person. The person saying this, because that person doesn't have the education to do it. I understand why. Because again, the reason why the person can't see themselves being in that position and saying, I would never be there, is because they don't know. They're not equal to what that person, for example, Bill Gates or whoever is doing. They're not equal to what they're able to do and what they understand. They don't have the network. They don't have the skills and so forth. Right? Now, I want to just for a moment explain what these 3 points I mentioned, Destiny, Gen, TechnoTutor, how do they fit into all of this, right? Because this is the education part. The TechnoTutor part, without going into too much detail, is to support you to go back to that root and change that education part. Now, in itself, it's not going to tell you what you should do. Okay? So if you want to limit yourself to simply being in the system, making money and so forth, and you want to educate yourself with that, you can do that. That's your choice. But that's not going to fundamentally change everything, is it?
Mm.
If you want to equalize your knowledge just to Bill Gates, then you can be Bill Gates. Is that going to change who you are? Now, if you want to educate yourself on, well, what's the fundamental operating principles that I need to change within myself so that if I knew what Bill Gates knew, I would do something different. you would need to understand what are those principles from which we should all be living, that if we were, the world would be a totally different place.
Mhm.
What is the education that we need to give ourselves to where the next step is equality instead of inequality?
Right.
Because what is an effective education, first of all?
The ability to consider all things by being able to process it.
Okay, even more specifically, you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong, obviously, but
Yeah, I mean, an effective education is just like every single word that's part of your vocabulary, every word you can spell and comprehend and process.
okay. So every word that you can spell, process, comprehend, that is your education. That is an education.
Mhm.
Now, to say that you have an education means, okay, you've learned some words that you can spell and that you can process and comprehend. So can there be a limit to that education? Obviously.
Mhm.
Just depends on what words you've learned to spell, process, comprehend.
All right, cool.
Okay, so basically our recording stopped for some reason, disk space or something. So we're just starting the recording over if there's a gap. Do you guys remember what was the point we were looking at?
Education is every word you can spell, comprehend, and
Okay,
process.
right. Okay, so cool. So that's your education, right? Now, so in terms of a lack of education, it would be having a limitation on some words, all right?
Mhm.
So for example, the reason why you would be a janitor in the current system is because you lack the words that a doctor has, right? Right? You got to sort it out, Drake, or what? Okay.
I'm looking at it.
Well, you can leave it. Just leave it. Okay. If you're a doctor, it's because you have the words the doctor has, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not an effective parent, it's because you don't understand certain things, certain words. If you're not effective in business, because you don't understand certain things. So what is the number one skill that you would require if you wanted to change the physical systems that are in this world, specifically business, politics, government, economics, and so forth?
Making money.
The number one skill? Well,
Skill.
money is the result, though. It
Right.
would come back to your ability to communicate and basically bring people together to
Well,
create.
specifically to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the word everybody hates. It's the thing nobody wants to do. I don't want to sell. I don't want to sell something. I don't want to sell something. But
Just
everything you
communicate.
have right now is because someone sold it to you.
Mhm.
Like if you've got a baby and there's a crib in the background and you're taking a picture, that crib, someone impulsed you and influenced you that you need to have that crib.
Whatever you're
To have
listening
that stroller.
to, your laptop, your iPhone, whatever.
Every single thing is because someone sold somebody. Selling itself equals effective communication. That's what the word means. Selling is effective communication. You could also say selling is sharing. Right? Sharing something in a way that you effectively communicate it so the other person sees the value of it and decides to have it, which usually means they're going to give you money that you're saying is what is required for you to give it to them. Right?
Mhm.
That's all it is. So what is required for effective communication?
An effective education.
Right. Words. The
What?
less words that you have, the less effectively you can communicate. That's why, were we talking about it? Weren't you just saying this story? I don't know if it was on, if it's going to be on the recording or not. The story about the kid in the pool.
Yeah,
Were you
that'll
saying
be
that?
on there.
That was on
Yeah.
here, right?
Yeah.
You were giving that child an understanding of there's chlorine in the pool. You were giving them more words and understanding so they could comprehend and process what was occurring.
Mhm.
That's the same thing we do with our kids. We explain, and it's the same thing we see with other people when they're around our kids, which is why we limit so much who's around our kids, because the kids do anything, they'll immediately say some stupid shit. And we have to understand, like, the child is super impressionable. So if you say some stupid shit around them, it's going to have an impression on them. So you have to be very specific with how you build their vocabulary, which is their understanding of words. And swimming in a pool is words.
Mhm.
If you're telling the child, now put your face into the water, that's words. So now they're doing it. Now you're saying, there's no reason that your eyes are hurting. You're making that up. Those are words which are being connected to this, which is forming an experience and a memory, which is going to be the building blocks of how that child lives their life. That is their education. You may think that's not something they learned in school.
That's
No,
teaching
you don't
the
learn
child-
anything in school. What?
That's teaching the child that their pain is illegitimate.
Yeah, well,
That's
it's teaching them a lot of
It
stuff.
doesn't exist.
Right.
Like that, they're just going to suppress that. Like that never was explained to them. They're not going to understand that they can't then drink the water. They're not, I mean, there's so much that's not being explained. And that's the context in everything that's going on right now. Every single human being that hasn't had everything explained, they can't even comprehend or understand why the system is the way it is. They don't even understand there is a system in place because they're just in their own little bubble, whatever understanding they were given, and they don't have any other context. They don't even know that there is other context to have.
A lot of people
And
say,
that's
like,
why
what
they just
system are you
react
talking about?
emotionally
Right.
when other people try and impression them with a different viewpoint or something else to look at. They just react. They're like, no,
That's a really interesting
way to look
point.
at it.
That's a good point because people will claim that you're trying to brainwash them or you're trying to manipulate them or influence them. It's like your parents did it to you in the first 7 years.
Yeah.
That already happened to you. And if it's really a big deal, why aren't you stopping that from happening to all the other children?
Mm-hmm.
Because, and this is really what it comes down to is, okay, let's say you reject everything that we're saying right now, and you don't want to accept that it's your inability to know how to sell, which is to effectively communicate. Because if you can do that, you can get up as a politician and you can sell people on, number one, why they should elect you. And then you can sell your colleagues or the people on, this is the policy that we want to have implemented, right? Imagine if we had a system where everyone has these now. So everybody could always have access to be able to vote in real time on any policy that was put forward, like a direct democracy. We have the technology to make it work. But would you trust that right now?
No.
No, because clearly 80 million people are willing to vote for some dementia patient, right? In a perfectly legitimate election.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. But you see my point though. But the technology is cool, but we need to have the education where people can actually evaluate it without being manipulated emotionally to do the thing that's not best because they don't understand what's being presented to them. And instead you're able to make them afraid. It's like when somebody says, well, if you don't put your kid in school, how will they be socialized? And I'm like, well, you tell me. I don't know. My kids are very sociable. Talk to them. They haven't been in school. So how did that happen? It's like, that's just some irrational thing that someone else impulsed you with that you never questioned because they wanted you to put your kids in school so they could do what they want with them.
Isn't it funny? Because they're the ones like trying to sell you on putting your kid in school. So like they become like salesmen for the system.
It's the same. Exactly. Right. It's like you're trying to manipulate me by saying that. Right. Now, I'm not saying I have a problem with the manipulation because I'm not going to be manipulated by it. I'm not afraid of it because I know what the word socialization means.
Mm-hmm.
Since I know what it means, I don't process it in the same way someone else does. When they go, oh my God, they won't be socialized.
There's people that see homeschooling as like the stereotypical like child who isn't really that intelligent. They're kind of awkward.
Which is totally against the actual statistics.
Oh yeah. But that's what it is. It's the stereotypical homeschooled child. It's just awkward, kind of weird, quirky.
There have never been any school shooters that came from homeschooling. Look it up. It's a fact. They were all school children.
True.
So I'm just saying, it's like, by the way, we don't homeschool our kids, just so everybody knows. We don't homeschool them. We don't unschool them. What do?
Educate them.
We educate them.
Big difference, right? This
We use our techno tutor every day. We teach them the meanings of words.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we do. And what's interesting is my 4-year-old can read. He can read. Katie is reading Watership Down to them at night. He can read it himself. He can write. He can spell. Like he and I did techno tutor today, and we were doing some words because he wants to do a podcast with me, like our own podcast, right? Just like for fun kind of thing. And so we were doing words around podcasts, and one of them was the word watch.
I would listen to that.
And I already know it's a word he knows, but I put it in there because we were just building lists based on words that we would use, right? Or that we would need to know to explain things. So we can explain what a podcast is. And we did the word watch, and we did it. And he goes, you guys know what I mean when I say we did it. But I said, so how do you spell it? Because he's not looking at the word anymore. And he goes, W-A-T-C-H. Right? And Drake was like, that's right. Okay. I got the go ahead from Drake. I got the clear. Right. But my point is, like, my 4-year-old could spell that word. Right. He's not looking at it. He knows the word. Right. So he can read, like, the word audience. He knew the word audience from reading it. Right. That's not normal in the system for a 4-year-old.
Mhm.
And guess how many times we drilled him on spelling the word audience?
Once.
Yeah, once in TechnoTutor. That's it. One time. Now somebody's like, well, that's not possible. It's possible. You just don't get it. Okay. You just don't get it. Right. It's possible. Because if that's the case, then how many more words can he learn than any other child his age?
Endless.
Right. It's what seems like infinitely more. So his vocabulary can expand in a way that's not possible if you don't have this. Are there children who learn to read when they're 4 without using TechnoTutor? Obviously. Like, to say that doesn't happen, but what would everyone say?
That's not normal.
You know, they would say it's not
that,
normal, but they'd
that,
also
that
just
kid
be like,
is lucky or
They're
gifted
special.
or
special.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's by accident. It's just, we had one kid who was 4 and they learned to read naturally, but then our other son, he always struggled with it. But what about everybody else who doesn't get it? The
Mhm.
problem is not the people who, well, in fact, though, how many 4-year-olds that could read then grow up to be somebody you know that made a difference? So
None.
didn't they hit a limit, obviously?
Yes.
You see? So even them, they hit a limit because they were doing it in a way where it was just random, natural, as they say. But it's not natural. It's based on the environment. There's nothing natural about that environment. Natural, when a lot of parents say natural, they just mean I don't have to do it. I don't have to focus on it. I don't have to take responsibility for it. Well, TechnoTutor, you're taking full responsibility. So if your whole thing is I don't want to take responsibility, it's not for you.
Yeah.
The reality is you just need to use it yourself so you understand why you need to take responsibility. So it's really actually for you, right? But my point is, okay, why would somebody think
We haven't
you can't
talked
change
about the third part of the trifecta yet.
I know. So, but I just want to make it clear. Why would somebody think you can't change the system? It's because you don't know how to sell. And because even your definition of the word selling, it's like you were kind of alluding to this point earlier, Jess, like you don't even know the things you're not aware of. You don't know what's out there. You don't know what you don't know. So you don't even know that the word selling is not what you think it means.
Mhm.
You think it means taking advantage of people,
Mhm.
lying to them, harming them,
Getting
forcing them,
someone to buy something they don't need.
buy something they don't need.
Yeah,
That's
forcing your will upon someone,
forcing your will upon them.
thinking you
right?
know.
Taking away money that they could have used for their basic needs.
For something else, right? Like you're somehow just so greedy and you're just trying to trick them into getting their stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But let me ask you a question. Isn't that how the world fucking works?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you're saying, well, I'm not going to do that. If I know the way to make a difference in this world and change the system, I'm not going to participate in the system to do that, to change it. And what's interesting is anybody who says that will end up just participating in the system,
Mm-hmm.
but in a way where it doesn't change.
Yeah.
Because everybody has to eat. Everybody has to survive. So they'll still, no matter what you can't get out of it, you'll just end up selling in a way that is not the best.
Mhm.
So my point is nobody needs to judge the word selling because it's a fact of our system. Now you need to realize that you're not equal to that ability to someone like Bill Gates.
Mhm.
So you might say, well, what were you gonna say, Drake?
I was going to say, there's also another point within that is like you're taking the responsibility from the person being sold. Like you're literally taking all the responsibility from them.
You're saying that they're inferior to me.
Exactly.
They're so weak and so poor little thing.
Right.
I don't want to take advantage of them.
And don't get me wrong.
They can't make decisions for themselves.
Don't get me wrong. To sell, you have to have skill. You have to you have to be good at it in order to actually sell it. But the other person is making a decision. That's what you're being good at, is communicating in a way that they can understand what you're saying and they can see the benefits of it. If you're just terrible at communicating, you're not going to sell anything.
The only other option is what government does.
Force.
They force people to do it. They say if you don't do it, you'll go to jail. Like at the end of the day, that's what everyone's afraid of if they don't follow what the government says, the laws.
Yeah.
You'll go to jail. We'll put you to death. Whatever it is, we'll take your kids. We'll
Like
take your house.
even with the fines that they give you a fine, and it's like, oh, you feel like I don't want to pay that. You're forced to pay it. Like
You're forced to
the
do it 'cause the
IRS
threat
says
is always,
you owe us this.
People are going to come to your door and take you away or something.
Exactly.
So
That's
the
what
point
happened
is either
to Wesley
there's
Snipes.
that. There's either that or you sell people on doing something, which means you can't force them. Because if you force them, they could go to the government and be like, hey, he forced me to buy this. And then they could like sue you or whatever. So you can't, if you're going to build a business, Bill Gates didn't force anybody to do anything.
Right.
And even with this whole vaccine thing that's going on, for those who don't want it, was anybody forced to do it?
Nope.
Nobody. I haven't
They were
seen anybody
just
forced.
sold the shit out of them.
They're
Like
sold.
all the people
Yeah.
who weren't going to get it, and then all their family and all their relatives and all their friends and all their coworkers and every news channel and every radio ad and all that convinced them to go get it by
And
selling them on it.
And they
But
said
that
you
is
have
the point.
friends. They said you have friends and family who are hesitant. So here's what you could say to them.
Mhm.
They're literally training people to go out there and be like, your friends and
Teaching
family
them
who
how
don't.
to sell.
Right. So that's the system we're in.
And if someone, because I mean I talk to some people who don't think that they can sell, or for whatever reason they don't want to sell, right? That becomes this other way of basically justifying this current system, because the current system is going to keep moving on. It's going to keep going, right? The money's going to keep exchanging. It's automated.
Mhm.
And if we're to think, oh, well, I don't want to sell, or I'm not good at selling. Well, if I have something that's of real quality, like with Self-Perfected, for example, people will just find us. They'll just find it. And if it's for them, they'll come to us. It's like,
Show me one thing that ever happened. That never happened in reality, for anything.
yeah.
Because here's why. Is there not 1,000 other fucking things competing for their attention?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
how are they going to find it if you didn't put it in their path? If you didn't put it in front of their face, how are they going to find it?
The law of
Like if
attraction.
someone's like, someone can just wander around and find my house.
No.
Like, even if I told you what city, even if I told you what neighborhood, you may not even find it.
Yeah.
You'd have
Yeah,
to get
what would we have
lucky.
to base it on? There's
Huh?
there's nothing to base that on.
Dude,
But if I wanted to tell you what the address was, then you would find it. So
I've
what,
been-
did I like manipulate you?
I've been to your house so many times, and if I'm driving and I don't use GPS, I can't find it.
Right.
I can't find it.
All right. So, okay, but let's go back to the point. Just like what we were saying with the minimalism thing, it's the same thing, isn't it? Like, well, I mean, I don't need to have a lot of stuff because, and then they start justifying all this other stuff, right? But it's not really the case. It's that they're actually, they've accepted some point of fear, just going back to that tree, right? And
usually
because they don't know how to do it, but they're now going up the tree and justifying all the way to the point where they justify an evil system
Mhm.
that can't change because why? They don't have the education to change it.
Yeah, usually the point of fear that they've accepted is like they've been sold on this thing, our idea of pollution, and then also the spiritualism thing and all of that. But it's really from the starting point of, like, in the artificial intelligence book that we were reading from last week, he says in there, like, okay, when you are the elite, you own more than half the world, right? And you want more still, then you just convince everybody else to give up what they have. And that's what everybody's been sold on, is like, oh, okay, well, we don't want to create too much carbon, but how much carbon are they consuming?
Right.
Oh,
Where's
okay.
where's the equality there?
Yeah. Like,
Right. So yeah. Did you want to add something to it, or?
no, it's that point, but it's cascading into every other point. It's not just with pollution. It's not just with, carbon emissions or whatever. It's also with your materials. It's also with every resource that you have available to you. It's not being taken from you. but you're being sold on giving it up. You know, that's the point that I wanted to make.
Yeah, so it's funny because some people will say, I don't have to do it because everyone else is going to do it. So it's going to happen anyways. You know what I mean? Well, the thing is, the system is present inside of each individual human being. And that's why it is reflected externally. That's why it exists out there, because we're creating it. So those patterns are inside us. Those patterns of spending money on shitty food that causes you to have health issues, which causes you to have to go to the doctor, which causes you to get medication, like all these things where it's like, that is inside of you. That system is inside of you. And so in order for us to change the entire system, it's not necessarily the external factors that we all have to change. It's the internal factors that we have to change in each individual person. And I see the only way for us to do that is for people to do this process, because nothing else actually fundamentally changes somebody from their physical, like their physical body structure. Like you can, like we said, become a minimalist and then, oh, you're not contributing to pollution in those ways. You're not contributing to the materialistic issues, like those type of things. But if you're still accepting the money system that abuses, the political system that abuses, like all this stuff, and there's still suffering going on in the world, then you're still the issue. It doesn't matter if you're a minimalist. You're still the issue.
You know, Cameron made this point earlier, but in the context of what you're saying right now, it really fits in nicely, is that all those things, or I think Asif might have made this point, but all those things of like becoming a minimalist or whatever, it's like an outward change, but you don't actually have to change. You don't have to change the image that you have of yourself. That's really what it comes down to. It's like you can still pretend you're a good person without actually changing you or your principles or anything that you're actually contributing to the system. Because all of those things is a way of, hey, you don't have to take responsibility. Like the responsibility that you take is minimal. That's what it becomes, as opposed to like, so when somebody says like, oh, you know, give up your belongings, your possessions, or stop using your car and like, that's going to help, or stop drinking out of plastic bottles, that's going to help, you know, our carbon emissions or whatever. It's really like, that's a very minimal thing that you can do. And it's not even the starting point of where that's coming from. You're not even addressing that. It's like, it's very surface level. It's low vocabulary solution, you know? And
it makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you're contributing.
Sure.
You're doing everything that you can do. It makes you feel, like I said, it's all
somebody sold that image.
Yeah.
So that people would have an easy way to go into that would actually not change the system, but they could still feel it's like, it's just consumerism. Right. So here's what I want to look at.
Are we consuming a steel water bottle then? Or
right.
maybe
I'm changing the planet because I'm not using plastic water bottles.
Hard plastic instead of a soft plastic.
Right. It's like they're still making the fucking other ones.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And they'll just sell you on the next thing, right? But here's the point. So, okay. Somebody might ask, like, is Techno Tutor, is Jin, is Destiny, you know, DIP, is that for everyone? Okay. Must a person do it? Well, first of all, I would never say a person has to do something. And if I do, this is the problem with the word has to, right? If I say you have to eat, is that true?
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm forcing you to do it?
No.
But I said you have to do it, Jess. Jess, you have to eat.
I'm not going to eat because you told me to. I'm going to eat because I want to, Cameron.
Okay. Mitch, you have to eat.
How dare you?
Drake, you have to drink. See? Got him.
Damn it. God
You
damn
have to
it.
eat. Am I forcing you to do it?
I'm going to drink, but it's not because you just said that.
If I say someone has to do something, does that mean I'm forcing them to do it? Or am I pointing out that it's something that
it's necessary.
It's necessary to do. If I say everyone has to have an effective education.
That is true. It's obvious.
If I know that Techno Tutor works, and I say someone has to do it, am I saying I'm forcing them to do it?
Mm.
No.
If I say you have to have a cell phone, am I forcing you to have one?
No.
No.
No one's being forced. But if I'm saying you have to do it, that would just show my certainty that it's something that's necessary.
Right.
Let me ask you a question. Is there any person in this world, let's say barring some kind of like brain damage or some physical thing that's preventing their body physically from developing or whatever, like that's something that's just obviously we want to prevent those things. But barring something like that, is there any person who doesn't need to learn how to communicate?
No.
Yeah, every human needs to have that ability.
Does every child, every baby, barring, for example, ones that have physical abnormalities, broken legs, spines that fuse to their fucking skull, I saw some dude where this guy was spitting his whole life bent over like this. He literally couldn't, right? Barring things like that, does every child learn how to walk?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So every child learns to walk because they have a natural learning ability. They have an ability to absorb that pattern from their environment. They're not like horses that they are born and then suddenly like within, I don't know, it's like an hour or something, they're walking and running around.
Right.
That was a built-in program. It's not the case with people. But the reason why they learn is because they have the ability to absorb patterns from their environment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if we have the ability to support every person who doesn't have physical preventative issues, if we have the ability to support all of them to learn and to understand all words and all information equally, tell me which person doesn't need that?
We all need that.
I would
It is-
challenge
It is
anyone.
best that is the case, that every person has that ability equally.
I mean, why is everyone like the story of Helen Keller so much?
Because it's somebody who you would think doesn't have the ability to become educated. And then
yet
he
she did.
overcomes, all these obstacles to do so. Yeah.
And wouldn't you want that for every child?
Right.
Even if you don't think it's possible, wouldn't you want that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from the perspective of needing it, I would say everyone needs it. Whether you believe they can use it or get benefit from this point or actually achieve it, I don't see why you would say, well, that person doesn't need an effective education. That person doesn't need to know every word. Because if you say that, then you're saying they need to be unequal to somebody else who does know it. Why would that be necessary? Wouldn't that perpetuate the inequality in this world, as we discussed earlier? Now, what else does everyone need? If does everyone need to understand that in order to create a world that's best for all, we must always be considering what's best for everybody? And that should be the guiding principle behind all of our decisions. Are we under the impression that there's anybody on this planet that right now is always considering that at all times, no matter what?
No, there's not.
Could we all do that better?
Yes, 100%.
If more people were effectively educated, would it be easier for all of us to do that?
Yeah.
Is there any way we can achieve a world that's best for all if everyone is not effectively educated?
No.
And we've already defined what we mean by education. We don't just mean to go to school. We don't mean everyone gets a college degree. We mean you know every word, every definition. You can spell it, you can process it, you can comprehend it. So no one can deceive you because you know everything and everyone knows everything.
It's like
And
literally,
if you're like, but that's not possible, no one can do that. Well, if there was a way to do it, hypothetically, wouldn't everyone need that?
Yeah.
I'm not here
Also-
to prove to people that we can do it. You see what I mean? It's not the purpose of this. I know it. I'm not here to prove it right now. But if there was a way, wouldn't everyone need it? And then wouldn't that be the thing that would allow everybody to understand, like not understanding the principle of what's best for everybody, that you should make decisions based on that, is the thing that's creating circumstances that's not best, is it not? How can you disagree with that? And isn't that education?
I also want to include in what is education, having that emotional stability as well. Having that, because
emotional stability comes from understanding things. Just
Yes.
like we were talking about from that video.
process the
Yeah.
words.
The reason
Right.
you get defensive or you defend or you justify, blame, whatever, is because you don't understand something.
Right. But I'm placing that in there because I'm assuming the person listening to this, because I hear it all the time, as soon as they hear the word education, they just block out everything that you just said as far as It's every word you can spell, comprehend, and process. And they immediately go to, yes, in the context of school or getting a job or something like that. They're not also considering in social circumstances as well.
But school by design limits everyone to a certain vocabulary set.
Yeah.
As a maximum. You
Yeah.
can never go beyond this.
Yeah.
And then even within that, it doesn't provide a way for everyone even to learn what is set as the maximum. Like in a high school, you'll never go beyond learning differential equations.
Right.
Because I know the top high schools in the country, that's the most they teach. Abstract algebra, actually. I mean, there's like basically advanced math courses. That's the most you'll ever get in a high school curriculum. You never learn anything beyond that. And most people are not even going to get to calculus.
Yeah.
Most people aren't even going to get to pre-cal.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
Okay, so education. So what is the education that everyone needs beyond calculus, medicine, physics, all that kind of stuff?
The most
Even
important
that
one.
stuff, well, hold on, sorry. Even that stuff is tainted. Even that stuff, that curriculum that we learn in school is developed by people who don't even understand what they're actually doing. They're only looking at it through their mind. They're not really seeing things for as they really are. They're simply indoctrinating children into theories that have assumptions that are not proven.
Yeah.
And I understand the difference between a hypothesis and a theory. And I'm saying theory. They're still just theories.
Yeah.
Theory is not proven. And just because a theory can produce an effect, there's no theory that's ever been taught that has ended poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And if it hasn't done that, it is not ultimately of value. Doesn't matter how good it's made one person's life. It didn't change everyone's life equally.
Right.
Right. So no knowledge that we're currently teaching, because it's not about a theory or a structure of knowledge. It's about every word. Right. And so people are not understanding equality. What were you going to say, Mitch? You were going to add something to the point of.
Well, yeah, because the most baseline education is educational principles.
And that's the only education not the only, but it's the main education people are not receiving.
Right.
Yeah. Because if you have that as the base, then you carry that with you into everything you do. So yeah, then let's say you do have this passion for science or whatever. Your starting point is then considering all that.
What is science without principles? That's what we have right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
What is business without principles?
That's what we have
Exactly
right now.
what we have right now.
Right? That's what we have right now. Meaning, so some people say like, oh no, the problem, we have opportunity for everybody. If everyone just had a financial education, it'd be great. It's like, no, you just have a lot more people competing for the same thing.
Right.
And if everybody had that financial education and we didn't change the capitalist system in terms of how it's structured competitively and so forth, where would you get the workers? I'm not arguing for the workers. I'm not arguing for the inequality. I'm saying we didn't educate on the principles as well, because if the principles don't change, it's just a bunch of people fighting for dominance in a marketplace.
Yeah.
That's not going to be effective either. Right? But if you want to change the system so that everybody has that education, because let me put it this way, people say, well, it's technically for everybody. I'm saying, is there anybody who doesn't need it? Is there anybody who doesn't need an effective education?
No.
Now, is everybody going to have
who doesn't actually comprehend what effective education means?
Well, it would be someone who doesn't want to take responsibility in the system.
but that's a lack of education.
There you go.
Now, everybody needs it, but the question is everybody going to be able to do it?
No.
Why? Because we already have a system of inequality. There are people who themselves, for generations in their family, have just been migrant workers
Yeah.
who for generations have generational programming that they can never, ever, ever do anything, and that money is evil, and that you should never do a business. And I'm just using the migrant worker as an example. Like there's so many different expressions, but not everybody right now is going to be able to sit and re-educate themselves and focus on that every day, because they're plugged into a system that they have to go for all hours of the day or just to survive. And it's like there's this song by Devo called Working in the Coal Mine, right? And he says, working in a coal mine. And then he says, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm up before the sun. When the workday is over, I'm too tired for having fun. Think about working in a coal mine. You're going to come home and you're going to re-educate yourself for a few hours? Or are you just going to relax? Whose responsibility is it to stand up and change systems so that people don't have to slave away like that all day? Or would have some space, or the mother or the parent could have space to educate their child effectively. Because if people can't even think about it and they just got to put their kids in school, you can say all you want all day long, people should homeschool their kids. And if you think that's important, how are they going to do it if the parent they're not even equal to what's in the school system? And they don't even know there's things beyond that you should be teaching. You're not giving an actual solution. You're just blaming and demanding. You're blaming the school system. You're saying the school system is the problem. No, the school system is not the problem. It's a symptom of those who have the ability to create systems not taking responsibility for creating systems that are best for everybody. So if you're somebody who sees there's problems and you find yourself going into blame and anger and all these points, the question is, what is it that you don't understand that you're not applying to actually, can you put that graphic back up?
Yeah.
Where is the responsibility, right? What is it that you're not taking responsibility for to create that system? And instead you would justify the current system and just hope that it's all going to work out, right? Because
that's the key point we just said.
It's not about, oh, it's going to happen or something, hope or whatever. Taking real responsibility for creating the system. Because the system would be everybody's taking responsibility because everyone has an equal education. You can take it off, Trey. Now, let's just look at some basic points. Why did I say those 3 points, right? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna give a caveat. Everybody who wants to change the system needs to do these 3 things. They need these 3 things. It'd be like saying, if I want to travel in my car somewhere, I need to fill up with gas. How can you argue with that? I don't need to do that. Like, well, you don't have any gas in your tank. And I mean, if you do, you're going to run out. So you're going to need some gas in your tank, whether you have it or not, you're going to need it. Yeah.
Definitely.
Everyone needs a proper education. Are some people going to be educated to some degree by accident by the system?
Yes.
Of course.
Exactly.
But those people will never challenge the system because they don't understand everything to do that. And what's something that you also need to understand? Can you do it by yourself?
No.
So even if one person like myself, let's say I was like, I want to change the world. Can I do it by myself?
No.
No. And thinking that you can is just ego. So you're going to have to realize, well, I need other people to understand too. And I wouldn't be here if someone else didn't already understand that and then impress upon me that I need to change and I need to stand up. Right? So what do we need? We need, number one, to understand selling and to understand business and to understand making money, because that's the people who make the decisions in this world make it because they understand those things, because they have the money to do it, they have the time to do it, and they have the resources, and they own enough things, and enough people have to listen to them. And if they wanted to change things, hypothetically they could, but they won't because they don't have the other thing, which is principles. So not only do you need the skills of making money and influence and all those things, you also need principles. That's destiny. And you don't just suddenly get the principles. It's a long process of within yourself facing all the points upon which you are not living those principles. And I would suggest that if you're in any way justifying the system as it is, you still have a ways to go in your process. And even if you are suggesting that we change the system and you know it, you still have a long ways to go in your process, because you don't have your process. We all have the process. We're all in the same process. We're all here creating a world that's best for all, right? One way or another. It's either going to be, we're all going to create this world as best for all, where humans are involved in that, or we're all going to wipe ourselves out and there's not going to be any more humans. Like, right?
Yeah.
I think there's some people who they don't want to take responsibility and they think, let's just do that. But that's not acceptable, right? That's just giving up.
Where's the responsibility in that?
Where's
right?
the responsibility within that? That's not acceptable because maybe you're just prolonging suffering.
Yeah.
You don't know. So my point is, okay, on the one hand, you have the skills that we need, the selling ability, the make money and so forth. How do you focus yourself? How do you dream? How do you imagine? How do you visualize things outside of what you have in a way that motivates you and supports you to not only develop the skills to get them, but that allows you therefore to take more responsibility? Because if you've listened to your wishes, your command, you know the first basic is who do you listen to? So if you want to make a difference in this world in a real fundamental way, based on the principles that we're talking about from Destiny, you have to have what people want, or they're not going to listen to you. So that's step one, is you got to realize that. Okay. So that information, that approach, which we call financial perfection, is taught within Jinn.
Yeah.
So Jinn is a necessary part of this. Destiny is the life perfection. It's the principles. If you have one without the other is still a lack of education. So you're still on the side of the tree of evil. You're still evil. You're still accepting and allowing evil. You're not doing anything about it. And what I understand from my own process and from just common sense is that if you don't have TechnoTutor, I don't see any way that you're going to be able, because you're not 7 years old. You're not 5 years old where your mentor is Bill Gates and Bernard Pullman all at the same time. Right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Unless that's your mentor.
Where that can be impressed upon you, that's the point. For anyone who doesn't understand that first 7 years, it's because you're impressionable.
And
You don't have that anymore. But that's what
even if your dad was Bill Gates plus, I mean, I would just say it's Bernard Pullman because, I mean, he knew all that. But what I'm saying is, even if, can you do it on your own?
No.
And if everyone around you doesn't get that same education, will you ever be able to do anything?
No.
So whose responsibility is it? Is it Bill Gates' responsibility to change the world, or is it ours?
It's ours.
And so who are we talking to? We're not talking to everybody right now. We're talking to those who want to stand up and change the system. It's going to require that we change ourselves. And then through that, we support a lot more people to be able to have the time and the space. Like, if you really want to look at it, what is it that everyone complains about single mothers? Is that the father left. So now the single mother has to like work all extra hard and do all this extra stuff, right? Yeah. So what does everybody want that father to do?
Man up.
Man up, take responsibility, provide for your wife.
Yeah.
Hey, Asif. To provide, right? Now it's time to get nasty, everybody. All right? This is the time, right? So basically we've gone through the whole situation. Why do you need Jinn? Why do you need TechnoTutor? Why do you need Destiny? Why does it make sense? And I also, we were talking about, like, when you say if somebody has to do something, right? Like if I said, Asif, you have to eat. Am I forcing you to do it, or am I just pointing out that it's something you need to do because it's necessary?
What we don't recognize in that is we're always saying the subtext is if you want to X. So usually when I'm suggesting something to or if I'm saying you gotta do your TT, I'm talking about based off you telling me that you want a great life.
If you want to live.
Yeah. So ask if you have to eat if you want to live.
Exactly. Right. So when somebody's asking me, I'm like, you have to do self-forgiveness on that point. Because you're complaining about the fact that there's this thing that you can't let go of, right? So then
what are we always saying? If we want to create a world that's best for all,
exactly,
then these are the things that have to happen. If somebody doesn't want to do that, I mean, what can I say? It's not I can't choose that for somebody else. Right. But I have the right to say what you want is not acceptable. Because if someone says I don't have the right to say that, then they don't have the right to say that to me in the first place, do they?
Right.
If someone can say everything you say is so bad and terrible, you don't have a right to tell people this. You don't have a right to do that. You're saying I have to not do something. So if you're saying I have to not do something, then I can say you have to do something.
Right.
but neither one of us are forcing anybody to do anything. So I'm not reacting if someone says I don't have to, because I can just be like, okay. I mean, I'm not assuming they're trying to make me do it, so I don't get upset about it. It's just like, I mean, that person just doesn't understand yet. They don't have the education to fully understand. They couldn't process everything. They couldn't process what does it mean to change the system. There's some people who have worked on themselves and developed themselves to a certain point, but that doesn't matter if they don't have the skills and the understanding of how to stand up in this system and to, in essence, become that new 1%. You know, it's funny because I think perhaps somebody might look at me or any of us and think like, oh, you guys just want to be rich and powerful and control everybody. It's like, that was the last thing I ever wanted. But instead of me going, well, I don't want to be rich and powerful and control everybody because I'm a good person, I was honest enough to be like, no, actually, I want to actually make a difference in this world. I want to create a world where if I was a child coming into this, I would never have to worry about anything. I could just live here and create and breathe and be here. So what's my responsibility? I have to create that, but I can't do it alone. Mm-hmm. And even if I did, okay, let's say I did want to create it all by myself. What would I have to do?
You'd have to convince others.
No, I'd have to be the fucking dictator of the world, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
That's what everyone will be saying. It's like, oh, so
everyone.
I'm saying I'm not, that's not going to work anyways. It has to be everybody realizes it. So even becoming the 1% is not about then you force everybody to do anything. It's like, no, at least now you're in a position where you can say like, okay, instead of having only YouTube where it's all a bunch of bullshit all the time, you can have WeTube where it's all about equality all the time.
Oh,
but you see what I'm saying?
YouTube coming soon.
Check that domain right now.
You would have oh shit.
You know he's not kidding though.
No, he's not. He's got a lot of domains.
He's gonna be like $12.
Right?
No one wants this WeTube thing.
They're too afraid of YouTube being like, I don't know.
You know, that's why I laugh. Like if you look up, you know, self-perfected on Google, it never clicked for me until I did it. And I was like, yeah, of course nobody would call themselves that. Of course nobody would take that name or have anything to do with perfection.
Oh, can we talk about that? Like if people say like,
no,
oh,
actually,
you guys just think you're perfect. No, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Self-perfected is like it's to trigger people. Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
It's to trigger you. To be like, oh, you just fucking people think you're so perfect. It's like you're blaming, you're angry. Now you get to face that.
Yes. And
self-perfection is actually in each moment. Am I perfectly living the principles? And guess what? Sometimes, maybe never, you don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But then the question is not, are you perfect all the time? The question is, okay, are you going to learn from that and be like, what can I do better? How can I grow from this? And then you realize and you wake up and you go, man, I've been doing this for like a long time. And I just realized like, I still have a long fucking way to go. I'm not even close. And then do you go, fuck it, I'm not going to do it? Or do you go,
I better start now.
I'm starting today.
Yeah.
Right.
how I also see
what other choice is there?
Is at a certain point, it's almost like a program, right? That we programmed reality with the self-perfected. So at a certain point, it's like we become actually self-perfected.
Right.
Like
when everybody
actually
embraces who we are.
Yes.
But that's going to require a lot of responsibility for people, not just us, but a lot of people to stand up and change a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not going to happen by me, by myself, or just the four of us.
Exactly. Or by people just stumbling upon it.
No, okay, that's not going to happen.
We sell the shit out of stuff.
The only reason why somebody would say, okay, and I just want to be clear, right? I'm not saying that Jin is saying everybody has to do Jin. I'm not saying Destiny is saying everybody has to do Destiny. I'm saying that. That's my words speaking from myself. Can someone disagree with me? Of course. Someone can disagree. But I would challenge you to prove that what you are saying is true. Not because you said it was, just decided it was, or because you've thought about it for so long that you just know it's the case. Like, actually lay it out for everybody. Explain it. Why you can't change the system, why things will not change. Explain. I want you to spend the rest of your life convincing the world that it cannot change. Make an anti-self-perfected podcast where every podcast you literally say the exact opposite of what we say.
That'd be great. That'd get a lot of traction. Yeah.
I think maybe I'll just do that.
Shit-facted.
I'll just like wear like a mask.
Self-infected.
And just be like, I am not Cameron Cope, and I think you should not do any of these things. And
is this the podcast that you and Max are working on?
Self-infected.
And it's so funny. It's like, okay, you guys are talking about best for all. Clearly, you have an ulterior motive. And you just want to abuse everybody, and you want to create a dictatorship and a dystopia and all this stuff. Because really, guys, we can't have a world that's best for all, and you can't create that world. So we just have to have a world that's not best for all. We have to make sure nobody tries to create one that's best for all. I'm like, aren't you literally the person right now trying to create a world that's not best for all?
You're like, I hear your sales pitch.
And you're saying
I hear what you're saying, but let me raise you another one. That's not the case. We're pretty open about everything about ourselves.
Yeah, for real. Like
we're
actually taking a massive risk in all of our individual personal lives by putting ourselves out here. And I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying, like, get real. Mm-hmm. Like, put yourself out there, totally on the line. Put it out there. Stand up and fight for inequality. As you obviously, it's like, okay, maybe you don't believe we actually. Yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick, it's like I remember asking Cameron. I think we were all on a group call, and his answer about, because I'm just bringing back real quick to that point of like, okay, if you think that this world can't change, then prove it, or at least explain it. As much as you can.
Explain why.
It's like when I asked Cameron a question, we had like a Friday call, right? And Cameron's like, okay, Asif, listen, like billions of years ago. And the guy, he'll go into explaining as much as of existence that makes sense for him until I get the point.
And is any of it like, okay, now you got to believe something?
Never, ever.
Because even the points where it's like, well, how do you know God doesn't exist? I go, okay, well, let's look at all the possibilities.
Exactly.
I'm not like, well, I know God doesn't exist, therefore this. Or I know God exists, therefore this. I'm like, look at all the possibilities. Look at the implication behind your words, which is what we call the starting point. What's the starting point behind whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God? And that's why we say Christians, religious believers, whatever, atheists, it's all the same fucking thing. It's the same starting point. It's not about whether you believe something or not. It's about the starting point, and are you willing to stand up and consider what's best? And people say you can abuse what's best because people have different opinions about what's best, don't they?
But that an opinion does not determine what's best.
Right. So let's only, when we say what's best, let's only talk about things we can all agree on. I'm not talking about things we can't agree on.
Because we're not even there yet, right?
We're not even there going beyond anything other than, does everyone need clean drinking water?
Yes.
Does everyone need proper nutrition?
Yes.
Does everyone need a proper education?
Yes.
Does everyone need a supportive, stable environment that when they're growing up?
Yes.
Yes. Does everyone
are there some things beyond that I'm just not thinking of right now? Yes, we can sit here and go on. We've done that podcast, have we not?
Exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
That's like 10, 20 times.
Podcast.
It's like, just listen from the beginning. I don't know, this 1 5-second clip, you guys didn't, you said best for all, and it's like,
you forgot food.
Okay, guys, let's right now record 40 hours of a podcast again so that this person can catch up. And that's why also we're saying this is not dependent upon us as some external authority to other people. I am the authority for myself.
Yes.
You are the authority for yourself. You are the authority for yourself. You're the authority for yourself. Anybody listening, whether you like it or not, you're the authority for yourself. If you agree with me or disagree with me, you are the authority making that decision about whether you agree or disagree. If you say, well, Dr. Fauci said so, you are the authority within yourself saying he is the authority for you.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's such a great point, because we're also always saying, like, you have to investigate these things for yourself. You have to understand it for yourself. You can't just listen to somebody else.
If you say KT said.
I want to explain something again. What you just said was really profound. You're the authority within yourself. Saying, so you, as the authority, are giving the authority do this thing. You have the authority to give your authority to that thing. So that is the authority over you.
It's the only way it's
But
possible.
you had the authority to do it in the first place.
Right.
So it's literally just projecting a belief on that has more authority than you do. When in reality, you have more authority. You just gave it your authority.
Right.
Well,
No.
yeah, well said.
God is the authority.
So anything that we suggest, look, it's funny because people will say like, oh, don't believe me. Go check what I'm saying. But they know in that moment, you're not going to go do it. So there's just a sales technique, meaning it's a persuasive technique. It's a way of getting you to just like let go of it for a moment. What I'm saying is stop this fucking podcast. Go read all of Bernard's blogs. Bernard Pullman, Creation's Journey to Life. .blogspot.com. Go listen to all of Heaven's Journey to Life. .blogspot.com. Go listen to every audio.
Cameron, I'm getting uncomfortable.
Go listen to all the audios on Equaf. Go listen EQAFE.com. Okay. Go anything. I'm talking. Go listen to Your Wish Is Your Command. Join Jinn. Go through all the levels. Read the Quran. Read all of it. Do everything. Do it all. But realize, no matter what you're doing, you're the one deciding whether you agree with it or not.
Okay, all right. Practically,
So-
no one is actually going to stop and do that right now in this moment. However, I just want to say, like, I know you're being serious.
But
Like-
if they're going to say, no, but you're just asking me to believe something, or you just believe something, it's like, no, you don't know what I believe or don't believe.
Right.
So I'm not offended if somebody says they think I'm just taking someone else as an authority and believing it. I can't prove to you I'm not doing that. All I can do is do what I'm doing. So what I would suggest is judge me by my current real-time actions.
No books on his bookshelf. Fucking empty room.
Hang on.
I wanted everyone to know I'm not basing this on any knowledge or information. It's all coming from me.
What
Right?
photos?
No, it's just me and Donald Trump Jr. and Avery.
Just a couple of friends. Just a couple of friends.
Yeah. It's us talking to Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah.
Right. But I just put it over there so there'll be something on the shelf.
Yeah.
But I'm not here to convince anybody that I am an authority on something. Because that would imply I'm trying to get them to just accept what I'm saying because I'm the authority over them. I am an authority for myself.
Yeah.
You are the authority for yourself, even if you don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the problem, because everybody actually has everyone actually has individual choice no matter what. So what the elite have done, and when I say the elite, I'm not just talking about Bill Gates, I'm talking about each and every one of them. They've created a system where people spend most of their life not learning about anything so that they have to automatically by default give their authority to someone outside of themselves.
Uneducated authority. You literally are authority over yourself and you're uneducated. You're the uneducated authority of yourself. So you're making all your authority.
That's why democracy can never work until everyone is educated effectively.
It's crazy.
Yeah, hang on. Cameron just made such an important point. That's why democracy cannot work if there's not equal and effective education.
Because
It's
look at what
obvious.
Look at what it's resulting in. This is the result of democracy. Everyone's like, "Fuck this system. Let's take it out."
Right.
Look at Canada right now, you guys. It's freaking insane.
They're
lockdown.
using democracy to create totalitarian dictatorships
Exactly. That's what
crazy.
happens.
because of ineffective education, and then all these consequences. And unfortunately,
Yeah, it happens.
hair in my mouth. It's from my beard. I'm always like
The
playing with my beard.
yeah.
Those are the
Yeah,
worst
from
ones to
my
get in your
beard.
mouth too. Those little short beard hairs. They're like, ooh. Ew.
Poke you a little.
So yeah, like right, Canada, for example, is in totalitarian lockdown, and then people have the audacity to say like, no, but like, don't try and sell anyone. It's like,
Okay, exactly. That's where I really wanted to take
Oh.
this from. What I was looking at was like, okay, don't sell anybody on any of these tools that would support them to stand up in this world and take responsibility and change it. We have to accept things the way they are, and selling things is wrong and bad, and manipulating is wrong and bad. Even though the word manipulation, if you were using your techno tutor, okay, this is why I would suggest somebody would have it, because you would be able to redefine that word, not just in your mind, but in your heart
Aw.
and in your gut and in your penis.
And then
You would be able to define it in every cell of your body.
Don't forget the poos.
And the
You would be
vagina.
able to redefine it in a
The
real
poos is the
physical
vagina,
way
Jessica.
where then you could live it in a way that would be supportive and not just in a harmful way, which is the fear of, if I sell, all these bad things are going to happen. I'm going to be a bad person, all these things, just because that's a physical program that's defined according to that word. And yeah.
Hey, this is going back to, I think it was Mitchell being like, wait, but don't sell. You're not allowed to sell. This is what I, in the local newspaper.
Don't show it. Oh, he showed it.
Your turn is coming.
Coming soon.
Jesus.
What the fuck is that?
What does it say at the bottom?
COVID vaccine plan.
Right. It's like a threat.
I know.
Right.
We're coming for you.
And then across the page, right?
There should be, it'd be funny if someone took one of them and like replaced just one of them at the bottom with like something real sinister looking. Like they're all like otherwise, and then there's like this guy's like
Watch out. Same newspaper.
virtual summer camps.
Virtual summer camps going bonkers with boredom.
What kind of camps?
Concentration, like for focus.
Yeah, for ADHD.
Like a lot of people have ADHD now, so they're just making concentration camps so they can develop their focus.
Oh my gosh.
Virtual concentration.
Manipulation is literally existence. Your cells are manipulating your body to run and exist.
Imagine the person who says, I don't want to manipulate everybody to I don't want to manipulate somebody to do what's best for all, but oh guys, did you see that new TV show that's out? Oh, I'm so excited for it. Like that is you, the same person. This is the real you right here.
I've actually
You're
literally seen
manipulating.
that.
I do it too. All of us, we get excited about stuff. We like, it's not about judging anybody, ourselves or anybody else. It's about transcending this point to realize, okay, hold on. Instead of us judging that our world is full of manipulation, what's the problem with that per se? Flat fee.
Divorce.
No hidden
Flat
fees.
Flat
I like
fee.
it. I like how it says plus HST.
That was Canadian too. That's not expensive at all.
Jeez.
Well, plus that tax though. Damn.
Exactly. That's the 13%.
That's expensive.
That's what kills
Better
the
just stick together.
That's how they keep all the Americans out, because they're like, well, with the HST is basically the same as US dollars. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, here's the thing. Not everybody's gonna yet stand up, because not everybody yet is going to develop the education necessary.
Like, let's be
It's our
specific.
responsibility to support people to understand the value of that. That's partly why we're doing this. What were you going to say, Asif?
It's like we'll have all the people that we share TechnoTutor with who want to just become better parents, who want to support their children to develop more effectively.
And we have lots of those people.
Exactly.
It's actually amazing to see that, because then they come in like, oh, I just
Man,
want to
you
give my
guys see
kids a
the
better
parenting group
education.
now?
Well, hold on. They come in like, I want to give my kids a better education. And then we're saying, hey, these are the principles that we're studying and learning and applying for ourselves. And they start doing it. And then you start seeing things changing for them. And you're like, that's really cool. It's like, there's a certain point where it's like, something's possible, but that's different than when you see it happening. So it's not like I'm surprised, because I only put all that effort into it because I knew it was possible in the first place. But then when you see it, that alone is the reward.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing it. Not like, making money, all that stuff is a necessary thing. And having things that are comfortable and fun to do and entertainment, all that stuff is important. But none of those bring me actual satisfaction. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Being with my kids, you hear them running around downstairs?
They sound
Being with
they're
my
having
kids,
so much fun.
seeing other people get to be with their kids and actually enjoying being with them, that is really, really cool. And anyways, that's also very exciting, but that's nothing compared to me just being with my kids. Like, I'm not pretending like, oh, that's the real joy, is seeing them. Like, it is really great, but I'm really doing this for myself. What's wrong with that? As long as I'm doing it for myself in a way that's best for everybody. I want to give to everybody what I have, but I'm also honest about the fact that I can't just give it to everybody. It's not possible to do that. So what will happen is, because you don't have the education to know how to persuade, build a business, and so forth, what you'll do is not share it. You'll not actually give anything to anybody. You'll anyways just limit yourself to have to go into the system and survive. And then you'll justify it by saying you're a good person and all this other stuff. But it's just, you don't understand how to sell. We've had to walk quite a process just to learn how to sell.
What I was mentioning before is like, could you guys see how like the parenting group has grown a lot, and people are like saying like, hey, can you guys share like these resources? It's really cool. Like,
Yeah,
really,
like actual interaction with everybody and stuff. Yeah.
yeah. It's, you could just see the amount of people who are taking it very seriously is growing. It's amazing. So what I was saying before was like, we have all those people and that number is going to continue to grow. And there's all the other categories, like people who just need to get to from really dysfunctional to a certain level of stability. Right. And it's massive. I've seen that happen with, you know, people who have different mental illnesses and different things like that, who've used Technotutor, who's really got themselves to a place that they didn't think they could get to. But what we're really specifically looking for are the people who want to go all the way. All the way. What does all the way mean for your life is you are willing. And when I say willing, I'm coming from a certain perspective. I was going to say willing to get rich because I was from the same kind of like, oh, you don't need money to be happy, like all that stuff. The truth is, you don't need trillions to be happy for yourself. But if you're really considering everything and everyone, the amount of influence through money that you'll need, what you'll need to build, what you'll need to buy. When I say buy, I don't mean buy a Lamborghini. I mean buy networks and buy
media companies.
Exactly. Right. Businesses,
Yeah.
buildings, cities, neighborhoods, right? It's like the amount of
You know how you get something mainstream?
by the mainstream.
You become the fucking mainstream.
Exactly.
Like the mainstream doesn't let you in. That's not how it works unless you're a part of them.
You build a bigger stream and that becomes the mainstream.
You just create a mainstream. That's it. You become the new 1%. You don't just become the 1% like them.
Like,
but you can't be like, well, I'm just going to do it by just giving everything away for free. It's like you don't even belong in Walmart.
You know what I was just considering? Like, you know how they'll say a billionaire doesn't have $1 billion. They don't have like $1 billion cash, right? That's not liquid for them.
No, definitely not.
Right.
Generally, yeah.
But what we're saying is like as a society, I mean, at a certain point, you have so much influence, you have so much like control and power and everything that is that better?
Yeah, it's fine. I wasn't noticing the problem, but yeah.
Okay. But you have so much influence, you have so much ability to move things in this physical world that you're valued at $1 billion or whatever dollars, right?
yeah.
And it's I think it's really interesting to look at, just because it's not like you've accumulated this money per se. It's not like you have a cachet of cash, cachet, but you have
a cache of cash.
You know,
well done.
But you have the manpower, the labor, the influence, the communication, all of that, right? And you've been
which is influence.
Yes, and you've been identified by others as having that influence, identified by the system as having that influence.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to buy a hotel chain, you don't need all the money that it represents. You could raise those funds, or you could finance things. You can, you know what I'm saying? Like, meaning the influence would be the ability to get that deal done, even if you don't literally have that exact amount of money.
Right.
But that is a whole nother level of dealing with reality.
It's more the skill set of being able to manipulate reality in that way, rather than just having funds. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like, and so that's, yeah, go ahead.
It's what that will require of you is to be totally fucking different than you are today.
Yeah.
Right. Even like, I know that we're all proud from a certain perspective of how far we've all individually come, because we remember who we were before, and we see how we've pushed ourselves over time, and we're like, damn, like this is cool what I've created for myself so far. And so, but we're all extremely clear of like, in terms of where we want to be, or sorry, where we need to be to get done what we need to get done. That's what determined means. You've already determined your end.
Yeah.
And we're just going to do whatever it takes to get there. We know that we have to rise to an entirely new level of efficiency, of communication, of delegation, of responsibility, of vocabulary, of understanding, all of those things. And if you are willing to do that That's who we're actually looking for. That's who we're actually looking
Yeah.
for. People who will want to have the best partnerships in business and in personal relationships and in romantic relationships. I don't know if that's the right word,
Yeah.
romantic. But anyways,
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
right? and people who
Yeah.
want to have the greatest children, people who want to have the best business, the most fun, the most expansive creative life, and people who are willing to undergo or go through the most pain. There's a great statement: pain is necessary, suffering is optional. When
Yeah.
you
Pain
get
is inevitable.
stronger, the pain is inevitable.
Yeah. Suffering
Right?
is
Suffering
optional.
is optional. So when you're getting stronger, the way you get stronger physically, muscularly, it's like your muscles have to tear apart. And you experience that as pain. You do, right? Even when you laugh too hard and you release endorphins, it's to mask the pain. Seriously, right? It's actually to mask pain. That's literally how it works. So the point there is like, in order to have the most fun possible, because of everything that we've accepted as reality, we're going to have to go through a lot of pain within ourselves of literally just like in a given moment, overcoming the dread of doing something or the self-direction necessary to get up at, this time, even though you don't want to, but you're going to do it because you have something, you have a purpose here. It's like we're looking for the people who are willing to do that in every moment and grow and grow and grow. And then you hit a threshold and then you level up and then grow, hit a threshold, level up. The reason why people flop and fall off and what KT talks about, how you start living in tents again and all that shit, because you don't have purpose. You don't have anything that's actually pulling you beyond a lifestyle that you've visualized. It's like, why would you stop? Why would you stop? It's because you already hit what you wanted. That means your dream wasn't big enough. It means your dream wasn't big enough, right? And that's why, Cameron, you shared some cool videos on your Facebook and stuff like that. Of Mayla was actually telling me about it. There's this lady who was sharing about how her dream was like she wanted to work in tech or something like that, and she really pushed herself, and like it was like all she wanted. And then she got there, and she was like, "What, man? Why did I dream of this? Why did I dream of this? I was deceived." She's like, "Yeah, I don't dream of labor anymore. I don't dream of just like working a job anymore." Because what she thought it was not that. If you're picturing it in your mind or seeing it on TV or Instagram or blah, 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 it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
We were just talking about this before, right? Of we're creating something and it's like not exactly how we had it in our mind, but that's not the point, because however you perceived it, it's not going to make sense. Your mind is not limited by actual reality. You can literally think of shit that never happens. So that should be a red flag to you of always considering what's going through your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Even it's about, oh, I think Drake's mad at me. Like, Drake, are you mad at me? He's like, no, dude. Like, what are you tripping about? I'm like, oh, I just thought it's okay.
I just got this feeling from you, Drake.
Exactly, right? I'm like, I thought, but that you just want to question yourself, because there could be a time when you're like, oh, I noticed that Drake has been off. Did I do something that he's kind of like holding inside of himself? And I asked him, he's like, yeah, dude, I don't like how you
see, but that would be more like you're directing it to check versus you're holding it in to create a paranoia where suddenly you act differently around the person and all this other stuff. So
right, it's this whole other game.
Yeah, it's not that you just ignore everything going on in your mind, but you look at it honestly and be like, okay, what is this indicating for me? Let me test it out. Let me see. But you would be a lot less defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's the only solution. The only solution is to question everything that's keeping you from becoming who you see that you need to be in order to actually have not just everything that you want, but beyond that. Because honestly speaking, think about it, right? Honestly speaking, creating a world that is best for all, you will be rewarded beyond anything you can imagine.
I mean,
it's
with a world that's best for everybody. Like that's.
Here's the thing. If you want a challenge, if you want to take the biggest thing and conquer it, if you want to be like on top of the world, if you want all of the props for everything, you be one that takes responsibility for all suffering. You be one that contributes to solving all of that by creating this. You be the one to do that. And that's what we're doing. We're literally doing that, and we want as many people to come with us. So if you want to be a part of the biggest change, the biggest support system, the biggest life-giving entity that is ever created, you join us. You join us. If you want to see a world with no suffering, you join us. Is it going to happen within our lifetimes? Possibly. It depends on how many of you are going to be willing to take responsibility and come join us, because we need numbers. And that's why we're here now doing this podcast, to show you how valid it is what we're doing. Like, how many podcasts have we created now?
48 or something,
50
49?
or something, right?
Maybe 50.
Around 50 podcasts. How long do we do podcasts for? Anywhere from 3 to 5 hours. Hello?
This is not monetized.
The entire time
Okay.
we're talking about this. The entire time, this is what we're talking about. Hello. And what do we do in between each podcast? We go live what we talk about on the podcast.
Right.
Right.
But here's the simplicity of that, right? Exactly what Jessica was just saying, right? It's like we're here to end all suffering, all child abuse, all slavery, all poverty. It's like being an entrepreneur is solving problems, right?
Yeah.
And the bigger your problem you solve, the more you get rewarded.
Mhm.
So let's talk. How about this? If we're only self-interested and we just want to have the best life, just me, I want to make sure I actually have the greatest life. Okay. Well, if I make more money, the bigger the problem I solve, then what are the biggest problems in the world? I'll just do that, because really and truly, you actually doing what is best for yourself is treating everybody around you in the best way possible. Because doing what's best for yourself, wouldn't it be like having the best friends?
Hold on. I want to add something real quick too, because there is a point where we need to. This is a thing we see playing out in our world, which is the dynamic between feminine and masculine. Right?
Shared body.
I know this should be a whole other podcast, but I just want to add this in here, right? Not just a whole other episode, like a whole other podcast. No, but this point, and why I said that is because you said treat other people the way you want to be treated. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. I see the
Because it's like, oh, okay, well, let's just go around and be nice to everybody and tell everybody you however you feel is valid. And
just dial back your processing ability just a little bit, dude.
yeah.
point.
Just don't be mean to anybody. Don't say anything. Blah 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 blah. Women and men need each other. Women are not better than men. Men are not better than women. They're different. Some things that some women can do, some men can do, and vice versa. Right? This is just facts. This is not an opinion. This is obvious. Now, women are not to blame for all the problems in the world. Men are not to blame for all the problems in the world. Women alone are not going to figure out the problems in this world, and men alone are not going to figure out the problems in this world.
Let me just make one point, like, as you continue. When Cameron says women are not better than men are not better than women, if you react to either of those statements, look at where you're projecting your insecurity because of whatever you got told. But just look at whatever point comes up throughout that last little minute there of Cameron just describing very simple points. The equality. Any point where you're either not in agreement, it's not, you kind of check out a little bit when he says women aren't better than men.
Well, okay, if I say, for example, here's the flip side. If I say, can women do anything? And someone says, yeah, women are amazing. And I say, can men do anything? They'll be like, well,
like, check that point inside of yourself.
Right. And if you do the opposite.
Yeah, it's
right?
like women can't produce sperm. Like, that's obvious.
Like, objectively,
because people don't want to be honest about that and face that, we start creating a false reality where it's like, men can produce anything they want, just if they identify. If a sperm producer identifies as a woman, then women can produce sperm. Okay.
And
so all of that aside, right? Okay. My point is, there is no inherent inequality between men and women. The inequality is through systems that we create by not considering what's best for both men and women equally, even though we're different, right? But there is, and this is something I think everyone can relate to. Are women more nurturing typically than men?
Yeah.
Everybody would say yes to that.
Mitch was the one who tried to go make Teddy poo, but actually,
But-
Jess is always the one who generally.
If it was up to Mitch,
That's
Teddy
always
would be
been-
holding it. Right.
Teddy didn't poo.
He's just
so-
got the magic touch. It's like if it was up to me,
It's a,
like
man,
when the kids.
it's a man thing. He's more comfortable going for him because he's a dude.
But I'll give you an example. Like Katie can stay up all night with the babies when they were crying.
Mhm.
But when she needed Max to fall asleep, I would be the one that would hold him and dance him, and he would fall asleep. I was like, I had the magic dance,
Mhm.
but she could sit up all night with him. Where in myself, I'd just be like, I just want to get some sleep. And like, she might be thinking that too, but she would get it done. Right. So if I say, are women more nurturing than men? Anybody right now politically would be able to be like, yeah, definitely. But if I say, are men more physically powerful? They'd be like,
Obvious.
well, I mean,
Not
come on, like
necessarily.
women can do anything. It's like you try to go into this, you
Okay,
gotta like
okay.
make it that women can do it too. Like you can't give men
Make
any
it
credit.
objective. Look at the structure, the bone structure of a male.
Well, hold on.
Literally, they're more.
Hang on, this is not about
There's 1,000 fucking videos to
seriously
show
though,
that. I
like,
know,
if you
I know.
look at it, women are more diagonal to make up for the fact that their hips are going to get wider when they birth a child, which means their legs typically are sitting at an angle, which means they literally cannot put on as much weight or bear as much force because they structurally cannot.
Right. Are there
Uh-oh.
goofy fucking weak men? Yes. Okay. Are there Amazon women? Yes. But now let me make a generalization because you're making generalizations. Well, when I said are women more generally more understanding, they'd be like, yeah, but that was a generalization. You just liked it. Okay.
Oh,
All right. So my point though is generally speaking, women are going to be more, and that's, it's not just, here's the thing. It's not just women, it's feminine. It's a feminine point, is more concerned with how everyone feels, not hurting people, not making people uncomfortable and so forth, right? Whereas men are more, and the masculine rather, is more interested in accomplishment, getting something done, building something, structuring something. But along with that comes, I want to create something for you so you can have that place to feel great and to make everyone in there feel great.
Mhm.
But in order for me to create this, anybody who gets in the way with their little feelings, you can fuck right off. Go be a little bitch somewhere else. Like that's the attitude you have to have. If you want to be Bill Gates and create Microsoft, you can't be like, well, everyone's feelings. Now that Microsoft is one of the dominant companies on the planet, they can be like, all right, HR, come on in, and everybody's going to have racism training and everybody treat each other with respect and so forth. But they're just managing a system that some fucking ruthless motherfucker created.
Yeah.
No, everybody's equal kumbaya ever created shit. Because even the everybody's great equal kumbaya person, when you go behind the scenes, they're like, fuck that person, I want this, I want that, fuck off, you do this. But then when they go on stage, they're everybody's kumbaya. That's a persona.
remember the person that we knew who was the assistant of Eckhart Tolle?
I actually don't know what you're talking about.
Avery was telling us.
I don't remember.
Anyways, Avery was telling us how his daughter knew somebody, like the assistant to Eckhart Tolle. And they're like, he's a dick behind the scenes.
Of course, he's making money. Of course, he's a dick. That's what it takes. And this is the problem: is people, the feminine within everything is like, we don't want to hurt people. We don't want to be offensive. That's part of the problem with this world. I get that. Okay, I'm going to build a system for you, and then you make sure that I stay on track. That the way this system is administered is that everybody has what they need. But if I have to just be a nice guy all the time and be everybody's got equal feelings, well, then guess what? Your child has to go to school and they have to take the vaccine and they have to be indoctrinated to critical race theory and this and that because I was too nice to tell these people they're fucking insane.
Yeah.
So if you want to be only the nice guy, your children will be abused. Because the person who's abusing your child doesn't give a shit about how you or anybody else feels. And they will put your child in a diamond mine for $1 a month, working their fingers to the bone and probably sexually abusing them on top of it. and they don't care. And if you go in there trying to be a nice guy or a nice person, you're not going to change that situation. Now, is just being mean all the time going to change anything? Absolutely not. But if you think that you're going to change anything in this world by not being certain, well, guess what? The people who are certain that your children need to be indoctrinated in the school system, taking all this stuff, doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how the world we have is created, because no responsibility. And so, yes, there is going to be some feeling of contradiction from the feminine towards the masculine and vice versa. There's going to be a conflict there. There's not always going to be everything's always perfectly in harmony. There's going to be some conflict. But when you have principles and you stick to those principles and you don't change things to suit how you feel, but you actually stick to it and you evaluate things based on that, then even within the conflict, you can go through that within a point of relative stability. It's not about no conflict. It's about stability within the principles and then creating based on that. Because
Well,
if you...
the conflict between masculine and feminine can be actually complementary.
Absolutely.
Like it literally is necessary to create a system that's best for all, because there's both feminine and masculine in this current system.
I appreciate the feminine point. I appreciate it because it allows me to go, okay, hold on. What I'm doing is potentially making people feel bad. Well, that's not my intention. So how do I do this in a way that helps me level up and go to the next level and become even better?
Mhm.
So anything that's offered from that perspective, it's supportive if I stick to my principles and I use it to go further. If I sit and I just blame, right? And I say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Go away, get back in the kitchen. That's not effective. That's not supportive,
Mm-mm.
right? But if the man, the masculine, looks at what the feminine says and says, you know what, you're right. Let me just go back and get a job and not try to change anything. That's not effective either. So in the grand scheme of things, going into the system, you're going to need those who are willing to stand up in a position and be, in the context of what's required in the system, what we would call ruthless. Ruthless doesn't mean abusive. Ruthless means I don't let my feelings interfere with what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Ruthless means in a business deal, you can't get emotional, because if you get emotional, you will lose. And then if what you had was best, then that means you just accepted what wasn't best because you couldn't deal with your emotions, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to suppress. It just means you have to understand the context of what it is that you're doing and what you're building. And so if you want to stop child abuse and you say, well, we don't need to sell the world on equality, well, then guess what? You know who's going to sell your kids on behavior? Cardi B.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have a world full of single moms who are independent women who don't need no man, who sit there and complain about how evil men are. And you're going to have a bunch of guys running around in dresses, not knowing what they are. And then you're not going to have a world. And then what's going to happen is, you know who's still going to exist?
The elite.
The elite fucking dominant alpha males and women who know that you're just a slave and it was all a big trick. And all you did was give up and you allowed them to take everything more and more and more. And at the end of the day, they don't have a solution. So it's only all going to collapse. And you're going to suffer and your children are going to suffer and they're going to suffer. And who was to blame? Not them, but those who knew better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not acceptable. So for me personally, I don't look at it like anyone is to blame for anything. I'm like, what can I do? Knowing also that I can't do it alone. So there's no place for ego in the sense that like, well, I want to be the hero that saves everybody. Who gives a shit what kind of credit I get or don't get? It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only going to experience myself in my life in the context of where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not interested in having slaves. So I'm never going to experience that because I'm not interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I want to create a world where everybody has what they need, but to do that, we have to stand up in the system. Yeah. So we create a movement within this world where everybody who joins us has to equally stand up. Where's the slavery within that? Where's the inequality within that? Because if hypothetically I wanted to, personally me, or one of you wanted to create a following, wouldn't you have to make sure that nobody was ever equal to you? Wouldn't you?
Yes.
Would you say to them, do all the things that I did and go even better than me and go harder than me and go faster than me?
No.
You say that for your
Isn't
kids.
that what all the gurus do?
Yes.
They always do it in a way where it's like, you can't do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
None of that will ever work because it's not about equality. Equality is each person taking full responsibility, but also understanding that we have a timeline, meaning we can't get to that today for every single person. We have to take the responsibility where others can't right now, so that we can be in a position to change things so that they can be in a position to take responsibility. In a world where not even everyone has an income, how can you expect anyone else to change if you have the time and the space to actually make a podcast?
Yeah.
You know, but then to abuse that position to say that things can't change. Why don't you go and look in the face of the person being abused right now and tell them that?
Yes.
Like, I wouldn't be willing to do that. Right?
Yeah.
So really, what excuse is there?
That's a really great point of.
How was your pee?
It was a great pee. I had an awesome pee. Very relieving. I enjoyed it.
We should have like one of
very
those
much.
like soundboards that go "Brr, brr, brr, Drake's pee report," and then you give us like
I think
a quality test.
More appropriate would be a poop report, you know?
Yes.
And then I could tell you all about my poops. They're always
Brr, brr,
great.
brr, Drake's poop report.
Yeah. But that point of like, just going back to, you'd said earlier, stop this podcast, go look up Heaven's Journey to Life and read all the blogs. Look at Creation's Journey to Life and read all the blogs. Go on eQuap, listen to all the audios. And then just now you were saying there's no guru who's telling you to do all the things that they did. And even if they are, they're telling you in a way that you're not going to do any of that stuff.
Because you'll never be able to process what they processed. They didn't give you the step-by-step of how they got there.
Right.
And then the ability to take in new information in the first place.
Right. But the point I wanted to make is like, I've gone through and read all those blogs and it's not impossible. There is a process to it, but this is literally the process that I did, you know? And so it's not like I wasn't keen on any of this information. I wasn't keen on any of these principles or concepts or anything before. And by walking this process of, oh, okay, got Technature, cool. Now I can improve my processing ability. Then, okay, let me look at these blogs. And I wasn't processing it at first, but then I used the tools that I have, you know, and, do DIP, self-forgiveness. Okay. Yeah. All of that has gotten me to the point where, like you're saying, I can do, and I can see the things that you're saying. And it's not out of like, I want to follow you or, oh, you're so great or anything like that. It's like, no, what you're saying makes sense.
Hold on. It's not the things I'm saying.
But what you're explaining.
I know, but I just want to clarify for people. It's not just what I'm saying.
Right. It's common sense.
It's not just common sense. Like, go study the fucking Destiny material.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go study the Bible. Go study Jesus. Go study anything.
It's like
It's all there. It's just nobody wants to apply it. They want to make excuses.
So the reason why we're experiencing consequences is because we're not going with the way things actually work in reality.
Well, and think about that, like with DIP as well, because I share DIP with as many people as I can. It's like,
And when you say share, you just mean like, oh yeah, DIP.
oh yeah, I just have the link,
Or
right?
you fucking sell them.
I'm
on
like,
hey,
oh,
here's.
no.
Can you explain what that process is when you sell somebody on it?
Yeah,
Twisting their arm. Are they like, okay, fine, I'll sign up and do all the
I
lessons?
put them in a headlock and I force them to wear a mask. No, I see. So I just talk to people like a normal human, right? I have relationships with people, and then we start to talk. And I'm a person who, I don't do much for shallow conversation. So I ask them, how's life going? What are you up to? What are you doing? They ask me, what am I up to? What am I doing? And inevitably in that process, people will start to share where they're stuck, where they want to be, why they're not there. Something where it's like, I'm here. I would like to be here, or I'd like to stop this stuff from happening, because that would overall make my life better in some way. It's like, that's what the conversation just unfolds to, right? And in that moment, I realized, okay, I have 3 main things that could possibly help you. And I say possibly because if they don't do it, it ain't gonna work. It's like going to the gym, right? But I know if they do it, it will absolutely work. I mean, if they actually effectively apply it. Like if you're trying to do like self-forgiveness, but you don't have self-honesty, like
How do you know it will work?
I know it will work because every single human requires.
Well, I don't mean from a theoretical perspective. I mean from your own experience. How do you know?
Oh, okay. Well, so for myself, I require a certain level of forgiveness of shit that I've allowed.
Well, what have you seen as the evidence that it works?
Nothing. It's all theory.
Look at where Mitchell and I currently are.
Yeah, it's like, okay,
like, compared to where we were before.
Go watch. I don't know how you could find this. You'd have to scroll way back.
If everybody could go back in time to 2019 Mexico when we met Jess. No offense, Jess.
No, please.
Please offend me.
Full offense.
Please, all of it. All of it.
I'm not going to say anything other than I remember Drake had to go to you personally and was like, hey, why are you acting like this? But that led to you talking to Katie, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were like having a conversation, and that led her to supporting you in that moment, which led you to taking things seriously from the perspective of the things that we're sharing, which is Destiny, Jin, Techno Tutor.
Unbelievable.
And then you applying it. It's like no one gets credit. Like Drake had the balls to say something. Katie had the ability to stand there and talk to you.
And
you had to then go, right. You had to go and apply all the tools and start evaluating and being honest with yourself and looking at when you make mistakes and coming to my house and me saying something that was in your face and you being like, well, yeah, okay, let me look at it for myself. And you taking it for yourself. And I'm not saying anything else. And you figuring it out and using the tools and using your DIP and doing all these things.
Yeah.
And now for all the ladies out there who are like, I just have to be single for the rest of my life. And it's so hard. My life is so hard because I can't find a decent husband because I kicked him to the curb. Like, why have you been able to now be in the position you're in? Is it because what?
Because I was willing to look at myself where I was fucked up. Like 2 years ago, I didn't even want children. 2 years ago, I thought the world was overpopulated and there was enough children suffering.
I had the same point too.
That's just me abdicating responsibility of raising a decent child.
Right, because if you don't trust yourself, if you have doubt, right? Because remember, well, you don't have to put it up, but remember the chart? Fear, doubt, which is coming from, at the end of the day, lack of education. Because what changed in your perspective that made you realize, wait, well, I can take responsibility and I can raise effective children and they can take responsibility for the world and I don't have to just be a victim to the world. What was it that changed?
Was educating myself, because I actually started changing. And then I saw, oh, I can change big things. Oh, I can take responsibility of a lot more. Oh,
if I can change this, I can change that, and I can be a better parent.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not actually depressed. I'm not chronically anxious. I don't have PTSD. I don't have eating disorders. I don't have all this shit that I was saying I didn't want to pass on to my child anymore because I took responsibility of it. And
but Jess, but what about all the other people in the world who aren't doing what's best and are not going to do what you're doing, or who aren't doing what you're doing?
They're going to watch us do it. That's why we're making podcasts. That's why we're doing all of this, to show people it is possible. And there will be other people that will take responsibility. And eventually it will become the mainstream. And so eventually everyone is
they're just going to stumble upon it. Right. They're just going to find this because they're just looking for it. Right.
Yeah. No.
It's like
they're looking at Instagram right now, hating their lives.
Right. It was Mitchell. You guys met at that event, right? It was another small event before that, and it was Mitchell being like, I'm going to sell you on changing your life. And then because subconsciously we all have this point of like, I can't actually change. That's why we're trying to change.
Real quick, before you go there. Somebody's going to say, "Oh, Jess manipulated you."
Mitch
manipulated you.
Yeah.
He sold you. Hold
No,
on.
because
The fuck? Hold on. What the fuck is a diamond ring for?
Yeah.
So don't give me this bullshit where it's like, oh, you're manipulating a woman into being in a relationship with you. What the fuck do you think the diamond ring is for?
also, when I connected with Mitchell and just like had a conversation with him for the first time, he said that he was working with kids and education and all this stuff. And that was exactly what I happened to have past experience in doing. Growing up, I always worked with kids, right?
So
I
he
saw,
didn't force you.
not at all, but
He
I
effectively
saw not
communicated
only,
something to you.
yeah, not only was I going to be able to relate to that point, but I was like, also, I need to use this for myself because I'm pretty fucked up. I can't spell anything. I never knew how to do any math.
Now think about this.
I had
too.
to work my ass off in school, which school isn't even a measure that you should really be looking at your intelligence.
Well, unless
with.
you become principal, right? And then
Yeah. So think about this, right? I remember the first night. So Jess greeted me at the door, right? It was like, cool, we got to, chat with each other. And then then there's like this little lecture that was given by this guy who's apparently this successful guy, right? So I'm sitting there listening, and this guy's like reciting these stories, and I'm like, okay, like, this is
Not bad.
some value here. And I see Jess in the front row taking notes, asking questions. She's like in it.
And Mitchell's
like,
thinking, not bad, pretty.
This is what I was thinking. I was like,
This poor girl.
I'm thinking that guy is gonna fucking abuse this person.
Yes,
I'm like,
who am I? Because I have a tool and access to information.
Wow.
Literally Jin, Techno Tutor and Destiny.
Wow.
Who would I be if I'm like, oh no, she's fine to just follow that guy? I'm like, this guy's gonna fuck her up. Like, yes, some of them information's a little bit valuable because he was quoting Jin material, but there was no context as to, how do you take this material and then actually become effective?
You spent a whole hour talking about
positive and negative words. That was the theme of the night, right? And just like taking all these notes, I'm like, this girl, like, I gotta talk to her because
I wrote down every single word. I was writing down every single thing.
You're like, okay, so these are all the positive ones, these are all negative.
Yeah. And so this is literally giving as you would like to receive. The message of Jesus, right, was me then in the aftermath of that, when it was appropriate in the conversation, to be like, hey, who are you? And thus we began really talking.
That's how Mitchell introduces himself to people. Hey, who are you?
Yeah, basically, right? And the rest is history. But it's like, who the fuck would I be if I just let her go? Because that guy's gonna sell her on doing some stupid shit. Right. And she just didn't know. And it's not to say, oh, poor Jess, I must be the man and come and save the day. It's like, no, I have fucking principles.
He gave
and I'm not
as
afraid.
he would have liked to receive.
Right. If I was in that situation, I would want someone to share with me because he could see me were someone who was teachable.
That's what brings me back to then that Denver event when I met you three. And you guys are like, hey, buddy, you're talking about this source energy thing. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, huh.
See, someone did that for you.
Yes.
You did it
Right.
for her.
Like Kian was like, yo, man, like, I'm sure he was like, dude, the guy's interested in the investments and all that stuff. Like, I'm sure he has cash on, but he was like, yeah, but education is really important, Mitchell. And you're like, cool, sure.
That's true. He could have just been like, take advantage of this guy, get him into some investment. No, he was like, no,
right? It's like, let me
all
just
that.
make money off him. It's like, no, like, let's focus on what he's here for. And that was actually is really cool because Kian was walking a process for the last couple months before that event to be like, okay, wow, this really is what is important. Sharing this with people.
See, he was changing internally.
Because of your support and Avery's support and really
But the point is he was doing that internal change so that he wouldn't do what was not best in the situation when it came. And this is the whole point. And he wouldn't have had that opportunity to face that point if he wasn't doing this business. Meaning, and it's not about the business per se. It's about if he wasn't like, I'm going to do something that will change the system. Because if he wasn't focused on that, he wouldn't have been in Technotutor in the first place. Because
Exactly.
Kian could
And
go
we
to
were
any
before.
business and do anything he wants.
There was a bunch of gin events where we were hanging out with you guys and all that stuff. We weren't.
Yeah, it took years to get you guys to see what we saw.
Yeah.
Because both of you could go and you were making 30,000 a month in Australia and on your way to much more. You know what I mean? Meaning you guys could do anything you wanted. But that was a process for, so that's when you look at it, it's like, well, if someone like you can do it, it's not just people who have been fucked by the system and are losers. It's people who can make money can do it. They can change. They can look at things differently. The only reason why anybody would take a look at what we're doing and say something negative is because they're jealous. But here's what I know. All they have to do is stop, take responsibility for themselves, use the tools, place themselves in uncomfortable positions where they are giving as they would like to receive, just like we're talking about in these examples. Support someone else. And then guess what? They'll have all the things that they want.
Those uncomfortable positions. That's such a good point. I was just talking to somebody.
A little bit louder.
I was just talking to somebody this over the weekend who they saw the hangout and they were calling me and saying, hey, great hangout, great message for the video challenge. How's that work? Like because I have a business right now that I'm running. And if I do this video challenge, like the fear that comes up within me is that it's going to go like against my message. And then, people will no longer come to my business. I'm well known in the community, all of this stuff. Right. And
this is like, business. Like I don't do what's best.com. Like,
but the point is like every week we're taking sort of a risk. We're putting ourselves out there, we're putting ourselves out there every week, every day, where we're going, and we know that this is not going to be on the forefront of people's thoughts of like,
you're gonna run into conflict.
Yeah.
Because you're challenging even at very deep levels that's not even necessarily aware everything about everything we've all ever accepted.
Yeah.
Even if you're not saying all those things in that exact moment, you're still presenting that. And some people are going to react and they're not going to like it and they're going to call you names and everything. And you have to be willing. But how the fuck would you ever build a business, just normal business in the system, if you can't face that? Look at anybody on any side of any political thing, they get called everything in the book and have haters. So being willing to face that and put yourself in that position, that would show that you actually care. So that would show that you're actually willing to change. If you run away from it, it shows you were not willing to change.
So at the end of the day, whatever you're trying to defend, if you can't explain it, then you're just trying to defend some self-interested point. Because at some level that whatever you're doing isn't actually in consideration of everybody and what's the best use of your life. And so the only way, the secret to becoming extremely successful is being absolutely certain. And what better way to be certain when you're talking about doing what's the best possible thing for everybody and everything in existence? That's the only thing you can get certainty on, because anything other than that, just conceptually, when I say just conceptually, I just mean like, just look at the words like, okay, I'll do what's best for all. How could you argue that other than if you have some beliefs or projections about what somebody might be saying when they say best for all? But if you look at it objectively, just the words, you wouldn't actually argue with that if you understood.
Well, here's how you know whether someone has the biggest fucking ego in the universe is they'll start by going, well, I mean, you can't really say what's best. Look, we may not yet know everything about what's best, but if you can't even say there is such a thing, that's a problem. Does that mean that I am going to be the world dictator that determines what's best for every person? Absolutely not. No, thank you. None of us want that. That wouldn't be best, would it? That's something we can obviously go, that wouldn't be best. So you can tell me what's not best. So there must be a best. If we can just whittle away all the things that aren't best, we'll eventually get there. But if we can't even get people to say, well, it's possible. Okay, wait, yes, there is actually what's best. We just don't agree on it yet. We need to come to an agreement. If you think it's not even possible to agree, that means you are completely lost in your ego and your own self-interest. And it should be a big red flag that you're literally just justifying because you have money, you have a certain safety net, a certain security, and you don't give a fuck about anybody else. And you're just trying to control and protect. And unfortunately, that is the female ego writ large. The male ego is, I'm just going to bash through and beat everybody up and not give a fuck and I don't care and just fuck everything that moves and all that. There's a male ego problem also. But the female ego is like, I'm just going to shut everything down, control, keep everybody in line, don't say any fucking thing. We're just going to be all safe and secure and good and everything. Right? So you just might as well welcome your communist Chinese masters because that's what you're asking
Like
for.
you have these like super egoic, the male ego that created the system, and then the female ego managing the system, keeping it in place, right? And so at the end of the day, it's like you can either live the rest of your life in confusion, not knowing, having certainty about where you should go, what you should do, what would bring the best children, what would bring the best partnership agreement, or you can join what we're doing, right? Because it's not our group. We're just the group that is here to change everything. So if you want to be part of the group that's here to change everything, it's not exclusive. Okay? It's not a secret. It's like there's two teams. That's it, period. You're either here to take responsibility for everything that's here, and you're willing to change and have an awesome time doing it. Literally awesome. When you
The
reflect.
best time.
Like, I honestly speaking, like I think back to Jess and her bald ass head and everything, and I'm like, dude, you look like you came out of a mental institution and you're going ham. But now she's grown into a powerful woman that not only has dominion over her environment, but she's supporting other people to develop in the same way in a crazy fucking short time compared to who you were, like everything that you accepted.
Well, a lot of people don't even see all the stuff that Jess does because it's not public.
Exactly.
And it's like, so you don't even know, like you might just see Jess on the podcast. You might just see her here and there, but it's like, you don't even see all the other stuff she's doing. And it's like, it's a lot and it's measurable.
The person that you were before couldn't even handle you barely handle talking to people. Your expression has developed in every freaking way. It's unbelievable. Seriously, it's unbelievable. Like, I don't care what psychologist you're talking to, what healing modality you're talking. Nobody can get the results that this process does. And at the end of the day, it just comes back to what Cameron was saying. You're the authority. No one can change your life for you.
Yeah, and that's something that everybody has lost touch on. They're like, the chiropractor will take care of my spine. The masseuse will take care of my muscles. I'll go get colonics done. They'll take care of my intestines. Like,
right. I'll eat this shit,
like,
and then
they always just say, this person will take care of this for me.
Yeah. So I don't have to maintain it myself. Yeah.
Well, even within that specific thing, you have to be present while that's being done. You have to understand what is being done. You have to understand like the effects of it. And you have to then do different things to support yourself afterwards to recover and to prepare for ahead of time. Like, it's always your responsibility throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's just potentially something that could possibly support your process, but it's your process. It's not their process.
Right.
So if there's any point of like, just check yourself for any point of separation, of anywhere where you're just like, you're just listening, you're just thinking about it, or any of that. Because at the end of the day, like I was saying earlier, we're looking for the people who want to go all the way with this. If you want to go all the way, you should have started yesterday, but it's like, don't waste any more time. So You got the website. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't yet already.
Manipulate yourself to share.
Exactly. Right. So you can-
Manipulate your keyboard to leave a comment.
and do the process, like do DIP light and see for yourself your own resistances that come up, all your reactions to learning something new and reading stuff and looking at yourself and all that stuff. And you'll from your own experience, you will see all of the limitations that you've accepted. And after you do it for some time, you'll see how you can expand beyond them because you'll be doing it for yourself. Because at the end of the day, there is nothing that I can say to give you certainty. There's nothing that Cameron or Drake or Mitchell or Jess can say to give you certainty. We're just here to get you to the point of starting this for yourself.
Yeah, we're here to sell you on doing the fucking thing.
So you can develop your own certainty.
Answers. Right.
Exactly. So you can develop your own certainty.
Right.
So other than that, the Friday Hangouts are extremely important. And the reason why is because the subconscious connection and being able to see everybody discussing, like seeing a community where there's already a real discussion of what we're here to develop, it supports you to see that this is actually possible, that it's not just you just have to create something and influence the people around you to start talking about this stuff. And apart from that point, it's immensely valuable. And people are bringing up what's going on in their lives, which a lot of the times it's what's going on in other people's lives. I'm always getting messages of like, man, I'm so glad this person asked that question, and the way Drake handled it, the way Mitchell handled it, it really clicked for me. It wasn't even the person asking the question, right? So the value of being on those Friday Hangouts, and they're free, which is crazy, but the value of being on those Hangouts is something that you literally cannot get anywhere else because no one's actually talking about life perfection. They're just talking about how can I get out of you?
Yeah.
Me as the guru, I will give you what you need so that you keep paying me money. That's it, period. If that helps you, great. If not, no problem. I just need to get your money. That's not what we're here to do. We're actually here to make each other rich. I know that for everybody on this podcast. I know that for everybody in the distributors group. We're all here to make each other rich. That's why you have, people contacting me and Cam being like, hey, how can I do better here? We'll take the call. Hey, what should I do about this? We'll take the call. I had somebody else who's smoking marijuana.
You don't even benefit directly from it.
Exactly.
Right.
Somebody I never talked to in the distributors network, smoking weed for 20 years. They wanted to chat about that point, the addiction, right? And they were saying, oh, there was this other person who was also smoking pot, and they told me they talked to you, and it really clicked something for them where they could see the next point and go on to it. So we talked for like 2 hours. A week later, I got the update. Oh my God, I had to share this with you. Like, I've had the most intense urges to do it. I just did what you said, and I just used the tools. When I felt the urge, I started rolling the joint and all that stuff, but I just went to my techno tutor. I did the process. I went through it, and I literally had a headache all day about how intense the urge was. And as soon as I went through the process, read it out loud, went through techno tutor, I took a deep breath, and the headache was gone. Like, it disappeared. Gone. No longer had the urge. This is mind-blowing. I got it. I got zero, not one single shekel from it, because I know what I'm here to do. I'm here because that person is now going to be able to take on a new level of responsibility, which will accelerate this process of doing what is best, creating a world that is best for all. Because best for all includes me. If I was just self-interested, it would still be the smartest thing to do.
Yeah.
I always bring it back to that point to really make it tangible, to the fact of like, if you can't process that point yet, don't worry about it. Just do this for yourself, because you'll get really wealthy and get really clear and have great relationships and great sex and great clarity. And then it'll get clear along the way, because that's how it was for me. It's the truth.
Yeah. When you first start, you may think that you know it all after a couple audios, but you'll quickly realize that you know nothing, and that you're just getting started, and that this is going to be a lifelong process, and you get to spend it with the best fucking people who are also walking this process, and there's no other place to be.
Yeah, we're all going to be hanging out a lot this year.
Nobody else We're all going to be doing what is best together, and it's going to be the best life ever. And we want you to join us.
Asif,
And
you said-
if you want to convince us to stop, the best way to do that is face to face, and we'll be in Orlando for the Gen event, and you should come there and you should convince us to stop.
Let's
That's
go.
it.
And up
That's
until
it.
that point, you can make that podcast about shitting on what we're doing. But
Yeah.
it's cool. It's like being a part of this group. It's like even when you're flopping and you're screwing it up and you're going with how you feel rather than the actual principle, or wherever you're screwing up, you have a group of honest people who have your best interest in mind, who actually benefit from seeing you.
Somebody
fail,
will be stable.
overcome.
Like
Somebody
stable.
here will be stable. Yeah. Exactly. So we support each other. Drake tells me like it is. Mitch tells me like it is. I tell him like it is. Vice versa. And that was the one thing where I knew Jess had a lot of potential at that Gen event. When she was going insane at a certain point, she was teachable. She actually wanted to change.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all it takes. That's
You said-
literally all it takes. Any kind of doubt, fear, anything that comes up inside of you of like, I don't know if it's going to work for you because you guys were already blah, blah, blah. All the excuse, it's all bullshit. The only thing that matters is you actually want to change.
That's it. The only people that if you say like, well, it's not for everybody, or there's some people who don't need this, it's just because you want to hold on to some few slaves for yourself.
Mhm.
Right. So if you're not going to just be the 1% that we currently have, which believes people can't change, which is why they try to control everything, then you do have to do DIP and TechnoTutor and Gen.
Dude, that's perfect. That's like what Asif was saying earlier about we can't give you the certainty. It's like you see a strong man and you're like, wow, he's strong because he does all these things, right?
Mhm.
But then they can't transfer that strength to you.
Right.
You have to go and do those things yourself. And then you can, and so like what you're saying, as far as like those who don't want to do it, they want that person to be the strong man and lift the things for them. And they can just tell them what to do.
And then when that person fails, they want to blame them for all the things you don't
Right.
have.
Right.
Exactly.
Like, well, if you could have picked that up, like, no, fucking take on the responsibility of growing
Right.
your strengths. And it's a really great analogy because it doesn't have to be like a physical, like lifting weights, but your strengths.
Turn your actual
attributes.
weaknesses into strengths, not justify your weaknesses as strengths.
Yeah,
Actually look at where you're weak and make yourself strong there. That's what a group with principles can do for each other, is to support that in each other.
Yes.
And we don't take bullshit. None of you take bullshit from me, and I don't take bullshit from you. Right? And some people don't want to handle that, but that's okay, because we're going to keep going. And then maybe down the road you see it, or I'm back in your face, and then you get it. Just it's like you said, who was it that both of you said it? Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. So we're all going to experience pain. I mean, look at the world, look at 2020. But suffering is optional. So if you want to suffer for a bit more because you're not going to listen to what we're saying and do what we're suggesting because you want to figure it out for yourself, well, then you're going to create more suffering. And the shitty thing is you're going to create more suffering for me too. But what can I do about it? I'm not going to force. All I can do is I'm like, well, I guess I'm not good enough yet. Let me get better.
Mhm.
Exactly. We're just going to continue to get better and better and better until it becomes blatantly obvious to everybody. And if you want to hop on now and start improving with us now, you can. But if you wait, we'll be so advanced and we'll have so many people that we're supporting. It's going to be much harder to reach us individually. And that's not from a standpoint of ego or better than now. It's from a sheer volume standpoint. Like, join us now, get connected to us now. That way we can start doing this together, and you can be this much better than if you were to wait. If you were to wait, you would start way down here. You can't even see where I'm pointing at because it's so drastic.
Not wanting to join is ego. Saying, I don't want to be in a cult. I don't want to be in a group. I don't want to participate in groupthink. All of that is ego. You can't not participate in groupthink. Saying you don't want to participate in groupthink
Is
is groupthink. You're just with the group who says, I'm not in a group.
exactly.
You're all complaining together about not being in a group. You're just in that little shitty pity party group.
In fact, if you organize yourselves and gave yourselves a name, you guys are probably more successful in what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
But
So the best thing to do is join, do the tools, TechnoTutor, Destiny, Jin. Those three. What is that?
The
holy trifecta.
Trifecta. Also,
Right.
what's more important than like, commenting, and subscribing, which you can still do, is actually doing this process yourself.
True.
Yeah, I
Getting
guess.
started,
Yeah,
reaching out.
Spells. Got to give her the spells.
yeah
She-
dude.
that
Okay,
was a spell.
okay,
Well,
That was a spell.
But still, even better is doing both, but focusing on doing your process.
Spells.
Okay.
Super
yes,
spell.
okay, all right, spells. So if you're not willing to join us, you're irrelevant. See you next week.
Bye. Peace.
Peace.